Hey, everybody, you're listening to the Total Buckets podcast. I am your host, Felipe Malicio, and with me is my guest for the evening, Mr. James Pinos. James, how you doing this evening?
Good, Felipe. Always a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, man, thanks for taking the invite. It's like I told you before the show started, it's your turn now. I don't think we talked too much about your team the last time we had an episode. When I was talking to Jacob about it, but this will be all about you. One time, as like the Tupac reference. Okay, I get it. Your team, Los Banqueros. We had a lot of high hopes coming in for you this season. I remember during the draft, I was like getting angry, not angry, but yeah, getting upset with you because you kept sniping all my players. And then looking where we are today, and I guess that would be a good point to bring up the spreadsheet shared with the rest of the class here. I don't even know what players I was mad about that you were stealing from me because it looks like I kind of made out pretty well for myself. And even though you do have a really nice team, it's just not good enough. There's your team, Los Banqueros, at 6-8. As you can see, we talked about it before the show started. There are four teams who make the playoffs, and the four top teams all have over 10 wins. They're on the driver's seat. They control their own destiny, although Primo, strictly business over here. He just lost was it Jaden Daniels or
Jalen Johnson went out.
Jalen Johnson? Jaden Daniels is EJ's guy. Jalen Johnson just went down with a shoulder injury, so there might be a small opening for some of you 6-8 teams. But yeah, there's what four teams that are at least that are 4 games behind, 4 games back for that last playoff position. Yours is
Mhm.
one of them. You're at 6-8. You have a point differential of negative 54.7, and that puts you in seventh in that category. So yeah, you're kind of in the middle of the pack there. Uh, your average team here. You looks like you are losing by a negative 3.9 point differential margin. So you are in games. It's just that it looks like you might have a little bit of bad luck going. It just comes down to where are you going to get these extra points from. I also noticed that you have Domantas Sabonis as your best player. Last time it was actually when we did the episode on December 2nd, which by the way I have to hold on a minute. I have to change that date. Oops. Still says 12/2 of 2024. It should say what was Monday? 127,
Yeah,
120 of 2025. Happy New Year if I haven't said so already. But last time we did this activity, your guy was Paolo Banchero.
right. And
And
he
he
immediately got
was,
hurt.
yeah, I think we cursed you a little bit. As soon as we did this episode, he got hurt. But yeah, at that time, he was at 50.9 points a game,
hmm
fantasy points per game. And last I checked, he was like at about 30-ish or so. But that's okay.
Yeah,
The Montes Sabonis took over, but he's only at 48.9. Go ahead, take the floor from.
yeah. Like I said, Paulo, that was really kind of what killed my season early on because he's been gone for so long, and I was counting on him to be, like between a 40 to 50 point guy every week. Now he's getting back, but he's not quite back to full speed. Watching some of the games. So I'm
Yeah,
hoping that that'll make up some of that point differential we were talking about down the stretch here. Like I said, it's just going to be tough to catch those top four teams right now.
yeah, especially
Um,
my team. I'm not going away, man. I have a good feeling about this year, and we'll talk about my team in just a bit because I can go all day talking about my team. It's like the best team I've ever
yeah,
drafted in my
I'd say
life.
that the best sign that I have is amongst the teams that are bunched in there, even with my scoring. Scoring, it's still the highest of that group at 308.5 of the yellows there.
Yeah, let me go back to that spreadsheet. I did notice that. You're ahead
I've
of
lo-
Angel, who's always perpetually in bad luck. He's at
mhm.
negative 1.9 average point differential, so he has a little bit of luck actually. But three he's averaging he's giving up 304 points a game, right? You would think that should be
Mhm.
enough to get you some W's, but then it becomes a problem within himself. He just doesn't have the firepower
Right.
to light up the scoreboard. You are, like you said, you are at 308 points, but you're also giving up 312 points. So if maybe if your schedule gets a little bit easier, you might be able to maybe run the gauntlet, as they say. Is that how the saying goes? I guess I don't know, but maybe
Yeah, I
you'll run the
mean,
table and you'll get closer. I mean, Alex is only averaging 313 points. You're only what 5 points away from matching him. The difference is he's only giving up less than 300 points, which is the lowest in the league. So that's
Right.
a lot of
Yeah.
luck factored in, but he also creates his own luck. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, again, I've lost a couple of very close games. It's just been, so like I said, there's a couple guys start performing the way they're supposed to. Anthony Simmons has been kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
I expected more out of him. Keegan Murray also. I thought
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna have a better year.
Yeah, and the guys you do have, like you drafted Steph Curry in the first round. I'm seeing on the other screen. Well, we have one. We all kept one player, so it's virtually the second round. Who was your keeper? I forgot. Or was it Sabonis?
The bonus, yeah.
Yeah, Sabonis is at now he's at 49 fantasy points, but when I
Hmm.
took the spreadsheet, it was at 48, which just to give you guys an idea what 48 because it seems like it's a lot, right? But in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the color coordination, where let's sort it out, and then you could see for yourself what all these colors mean. So red usually is well above average, excellent, phenomenal stuff, right? And then you get to orange, or just above average. You get a yellowish hue, that's about average. And then you get green, that's below average. And anything that's blue is just awful. And even your best player is just slightly below average compared
Hmm.
to everybody else's best players. Uh, on the upside, he has stepped up since the last time I did this exercise. Again, he replaces Paolo Banchero as your top leading scorer, but is it enough? And can he get to 50 points on average? I don't think he can. I just think he has very limited game for this type of format, but it's a good centerpiece. So we look at the rest of your roster, and that's where we got to look. Where is this production going to come from? Because it's then coming from Curry. I think that's all you're going to get from Curry this year is just 40 fantasy points per game. Anthony Simons, that's why I was iffy about him because it looks like he's just a primary scorer and that's all he is. Yeah, 4.79 assists per game. That's pretty darn good. But is it good enough? Is always the question. Is that what's gonna be enough to put him? Because yeah, 31 points is nice, James. I'm not trying to bash the guy, but you
No,
need you need guys that can go out there and get you 50 at this point if you're gonna make any chance of making these
absolutely. And like
playoffs.
I said, that early on, that was Paulo. That's what I expected from him. I was really happy to get him where I got him. Also, again, Anthony has underperformed. Julius has underperformed. He usually puts up much better numbers than this.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I think that's you got to give credit to Tom Thibodeau for making him look like a super stud in New York in terms of fantasy, especially in this format. Because I used to have him on my team,
Yeah.
and he was a threat to get well over 50 points on any given notice because Thibodeau turned him into a point forward, like a legitimate point forward, at a time when the Knicks didn't have anyone else to be the primary ball handler and the primary distributor, and the offense went through him, and he would score a lot of points. Not in Minnesota. You're not going to get that in Minnesota, and that's why his production has gone down to these levels that I'm not used to seeing from him. I'm used to seeing put
Yeah.
up monster numbers. Don't
I
get me
honestly,
wrong.
I expected more from him. I thought that, I thought him and Ant would play well off of each other, and I also
Nope.
thought he'd be extremely motivated. Because he's got a contract coming up.
Mm-mm. No,
But
I had a bad feeling about him coming into this year. I like the potential there because of what he's shown in the past, but this ain't Thibodeau's Timberwolves, man.
oh no,
This is sharing the front court with Rudy Gobert and trying to share the rock with Anthony Edwards, who he himself is a high usage player. And I guess people, depending who you ask, even Anthony Edwards has kind of been a bit of a disappointment. I had him really high expectations coming into the season for him, and he's not. I don't think he's lived up to it. I mean, do you see it
no.
my way? Am I being too harsh, or is that about right for you?
I mean, stats wise, he's a volume guy, but he's not playing anywhere near as well as he played last year. I've seen games, and he's not the same player. He's too concerned about not passing the ball. He's forcing shots.
Mm,
You heard him. He made that statement about he's not out there to pass the ball.
mm.
So to me, he's at that stage of his career, and we're gonna invoke your favorite player's name, Jordan, where Jordan doesn't trust his teammates.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to give up the rock to get it back, kind of thing.
Yeah, and
And he's got to let those guys shoot so that he can get better looks because he's taking some terrible shots. Some
yeah.
nights.
Go
Like I
ahead.
said, he doesn't seem to be into it at all. And I don't know. Obviously, to me, Cat personality wise worked better with him than Julius does. It seems like they meshed in a way. Even though there was clearly some issues. That to me that experiment was terrible because I just didn't like the whole idea of him and Gobert. We talked about that extensively last year
Yeah,
when that deal was made. Moving Cat off of the five. You see Cat in New York now back at the five, and he's thriving at the five.
yeah.
It's like I said, he's a plus at the five. At the four, he's got to guard a four, and he can't really guard a four because most fours are now old threes. What we used to consider a three.
Right, right,
He
right.
doesn't have that mobility to guard it, and that he was getting in a lot of foul trouble last year because he was trying to guard fours out on the perimeter. Uh, so
So t
that's why I thought Julius and Gobert would fit together, just like Julius and Mitch fit, because Mitch and Gobert are basically the same player.
yeah, and you're turning out there's turning out that there's a slight variation of players there. I just want to point out that in the first round, one of the things that we had discussed is that a lot of my guests agree that in our draft, the worst player that was selected just by projected points wise
Mhm.
was Karl Anthony Towns by me, yours truly, because he was
Listen,
supposed. You go ahead.
that was the first time I was upset at you in the draft, and it was in the first round because I didn't think you were going to take him.
I was looking at Banchero, ironically enough. I was really looking to see if I can give Banchero, and I just changed my mind at the last second. Like, no, no, I'm gonna get Cat. I'm gonna pull the trigger on Cat. I'm gonna run it one more time with him, and I have a good feeling with him in New York, and that's exactly what happened. And sure enough, he went from being having the worst projected score in the first round to being the best at 48.2 fantasy points per game.
And it's funny because to me that's all about narratives,
Hmm.
and people kept talking about this narrative where he was this soft player,
Yeah.
and I've been watching him play since high school, and I never saw that. He attacks the rim like he wants to murder the rim every time. He's always done that.
Yeah.
You've seen him go toe to toe with other big guys, even get into fights.
Yeah.
I never got the soft label on him. I just didn't understand that.
Well, I mean, he's a little zesty. I think that's part of the reputation, and the other one is the reputation when he was when Jimmy Butler was in Minnesota,
Hmm.
and there was rumors like, oh man, Jimmy emasculated him in front of all his teammates. He made that team his, and Cat looks like a weak so and so because of it, and it stems from just being surrounded by Jimmy Butler. And it turns out, no, I think Cat was in the right,
Hmm.
and Butler was the one in the wrong because now look how toxic the
Well,
Heat look with him, and now as they try to trade
Jimmy
him
had
away.
the issue in Minnesota. Then Jimmy went to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia chose to let him
Tobias
go.
and Tobias Harris,
So
yeah.
there seems to be a pattern.
Oh yeah, and people didn't believe me. I was one of Jimmy's biggest critics in our basketball group over on Facebook, the Basketball Life Facebook group, and people they just love Jimmy Butler, and it's a lot to like. He's a hard worker, very talented player. He went from being a defensive specialist type of player to being a pseudo borderline franchise player. It's a great story. Even his background story of him being adopted and picking up that
Yeah,
Texas
no,
life. It's a great
like I said,
story,
on the
but
court, Jimmy Butler is somebody that most guys would love to have on their team.
yeah.
But it seems like off the court, he's a little bit too much Denzel in Training Day.
No, I mean here in Chicago. What's the dude's name? I think it was Joe Kiley. Is that the guy? No, is that the guy's name? Joe Cowley, I believe, is the writer's name. He covered the Bulls and
Mhm.
the NBA for the Chicago Sun Times for a very long time.
Okay.
I don't know what he's doing up to, but yeah, he's the first guy I ever heard that would go out of his way to refer to Jimmy Butler as Hollywood Jimmy Butler, and that's why every once in a while you'll see me refer to Butler
Yeah.
as Hollywood Jimmy.
Okay.
He
Yeah, I
loves the
remember
limelight,
that.
bro. He's friends with Mark Wahlberg. He loves that Hollywood lifestyle, and his ego is bigger than what it really should be. This. I think that a lot of people have got suckered into the idea that this is a humble kid with humble beginnings, but he's Hollywood all the way through, man, thick and thin.
I
He's
mean, to
about that
me,
limelight.
early on, he worked his way up clearly. He
Oh yeah,
developed his game, but there came a point where he started to believe too much the hype and forgot what the basics were. You got guys like that. I mean, we were
yeah,
having a discussion with some friends the other day about my boy now, Josh Hart, and they were comparing him to Jimmy Butler, and I'm like, yes, but the difference is that Josh seems to clearly know who he is
right.
and loves that role. He doesn't want to be the main guy. He
Mm,
just wants to win. And he does everything without thought. And Jimmy got to that same point, and it seems like Jimmy went Hollywood and Josh has gone, and stayed the opposite way, where all of a sudden Josh is like a triple double dude. He does everything for the team, and he doesn't care. He's like, whoever scores, scores. If I need to score, I'm going to score tonight. If not, I'll score 3 points.
right.
And Jimmy seems to have lost that at some point.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, it's a pattern. He's done it before at two other stops. And people are now seeing him for what he really is. All the things that I've said about him the last few years, they're finally now folks are understanding. They're not going to give me credit for it. I can tell you that much. Like they still think I'm kooky Felipe who hates everything and everybody, but I don't. I, that's not the case. But I got to call it the way I see it. The guy, and I believe, and I agree with Joe Cowley on this one. He's so Hollywood that he's in his head. He's a lost cause at this point. And
Well, I mean, down here in Miami, he's out constantly with stars, and he tours all the club area. He's out.
yeah, well, the older you get, the more that stuff catches up with you. Really quick, I
Mhm.
just want to make a correction that actually Carl Anthony Towns is not, according to the screen I'm seeing on the other side here, he's actually second among the first round picks. LeBron James is still number one at 49.2 fantasy points per game. But either way, Carl Anthony Towns really stepping up this year, and it's part of the reason why my team is dominating. Let's get back to your team. I mean, there's a lot to like here. I don't want to bash it too much. This is a nice, solid team. High floor, but as I'm looking up and down, you got Anthony Simons who has I think he has limited upside. Jamal Murray who is limited upside. Great great job on Austin Reeves. That's the type of stuff that fantasy leaguers dream of, getting that guy who did nothing in the last couple of years, but he worked his butt. I mean, like Jimmy Butler, like he worked his butt off to be a contributing basketball player. Now he's a kind of like a household name, and he's averaging 18 points per game, 35.6 fantasy points so far in our league. So it's a great story there with Austin Reeves. But yeah, Paulo Banchero not averaging the 50 points that he was averaging. What happened there? Aside from the injury, is it just simply that Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner needing the ball more, and Banchero kind
Yeah,
of
it's a little
has
bit
been
of that.
relegated?
To
Yeah.
me, I've been, since he's come back, he's clearly like he's clearly working his way back to what he was before. But the other guys have stepped up, so they're spreading the ball around more. But he'll hit his groove. I think it might be too late for me this year, but to me, he's still the most dominant dude there, the most high upside dude there. Wagner's out, so someone has to replace that production at some point because some of the other guys are more role type players who are doing well, but Paolo's still going to be that guy at some point.
Yeah. Speaking of guys who stepped up, Anthony Black, I think he was a rookie from a year or two ago.
Hmm.
Oh great, another guard in that rotation, but it looks like he's finally been given the keys to the castle, so to speak. And I actually picked him up a couple of weeks ago, and these players are on a short leash when they get picked off of waivers like that. But I've always liked Anthony Black. I know he's more of a defensive player, but
Yeah.
he has potential to be a primary distributor, like in the mold of a Jalen Brunson, but without the scoring punch. And Black has actually, he's actually produced when his number has been called upon. So I think I might have gotten another steal off waivers in that regard. And if Anthony Black continues to shine, then that's going to take touches away from Paulo Banchero. You also got Walker Kessler. I see that there's a red cross next to his name. He has a
Hmm.
shoulder problem, so he's been a game time decision. But you know, double doubles machine, right? That's what we expected from him, and he's finally playing up to par. He's not double doubles machine like Domantas Sabonis, but you get 11-11 from Walker Kessler, and I think you're pretty happy with that when he's actually
Oh yeah.
healthy. And then Keegan Murray, I think for Keegan Murray, I like him more as a real life player than I do as a fantasy player. It's just that he has way too much 3 and D in him, and it just doesn't seem like it works out for those types of players, the 3 and D types, because they're so limited in their role.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I think he's gone, both him and Demonis and all them have gotten short-ended because of the acquisition of DeRozan.
mm,
I think that's hurt kind of everybody. DeRozan is and that team was very much last year. If you watch the Kings a lot, they were great at ball movement.
yeah,
They moved the ball around. Everyone kind of shared the ball. Demonis was kind of that point forward at the top of the key, old triangle type of thing. And you're seeing a lot more isolation with DeRozan, and that's to me has thrown off both Sabonis and Fox and
yeah.
Murray, who fed off of all that because Murray
As
was getting a lot of open looks last year,
as
and
much
now
as
now the ball stops at DeRozan a lot.
Yeah, as a Bulls fan, I can attest to that. It was like it was a lot of your turn, my turn situation happening with him and Zach LaVine last year.
Hmm.
I mean, wonderful, talented, gifted player when it comes to iso ball, but in today's NBA, it just doesn't work that way. There's just too much versatility going on for it to just have a black hole player. And people get at me for saying this, saying the loud part, the quiet part loud, but there's a reason why DeMar DeRozan has never won anything in his life. It's a DeMar DeRozan show, whether he's doing it on purpose or not, whether he even realizes or not.
You know,
But now they're talking about trading away De'Aaron Fox. I'm like, oh my God, is that where we are right now for the Kings? You have a
I mean,
franchise player.
if you're gonna blow that up completely, you trade Fox. If you're trying to retool, which is what I would do, if you've got Fox and Sabonis, you've got Murray, you've got Monk. To me, your problem was what you brought in
Mm,
DeRozan.
yeah,
This team played great last year.
yeah,
This team made a really good run last year. And you brought in a guy who was supposed to be that vet presence, stabilizing force, but he didn't fit the offense. And we talked about this in the preseason, where I thought it was a bad move to bring DeRozan in, and people called me crazy, much like all the Knicks fans who had wanted DeRozan for the last like 2 or 3 years. And I kept saying, that's not who this team wants to be. And you saw how, we've talked about how Rose built the team. Everybody moves the ball. Even your two primary guys in Brunson and Cat are such willing passers that when everyone is clicking, that ball moves, and whoever gets a shot gets a shot.
man.
And
If you're the
DeRozan
Kings,
is
bro,
the antithesis of that.
yeah, I agree, I agree. And if you're the Kings, at one point you had both Tyrese Halliburton and
Oh yeah.
De'Aaron Fox on the same backcourt, and now just maybe what 5 years later, you have none of them on your team, and
Well,
you
the Halliburton trade got them Sabonis.
yeah, that's the ironic part, isn't it?
So
Yeah,
that made sense because you had two guards who basically had to have the ball in their hands to be good because neither Fox nor Halliburton is a great off-ball guy. So you made that trade for Sabonis, and Sabonis and Fox fit great. That was not the issue. The issue to me was DeRozan this year because
yeah,
that move that they made for Sabonis that made a lot of sense. You got Fox a big that he could run pick and roll with. That is great at passing to him as well and getting him open shots. But like I said, they changed the whole dynamic of their offense by bringing in DeRozan to me.
yeah. I'm looking at their depth charts over at the NBA Real GM website. I guess I might as well show that off. And I didn't realize how thin the Sacramento Kings team looks like. I thought they had more depth. At least last year, they showed that they had more depth. What the hell? Get out of here. I thought last year they had more depth, but yeah, it looks like it's these 5 guys as your starters. Darren Fox, Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, and then Keon Ellis and Trey Lyles are your main bench guys, and just a bunch of
I know when they brought in DeRozan, they had to let go of a couple of benches. I can't remember who.
I think Harrison Barnes was one of them. If or was he already gone by then? 'Cause
I'm
now
not
he's with the
sure.
Spurs, I believe, still.
I just know I remember they had to let go of a couple of guys to fit DeRozan's number.
Yeah.
And then clearly that again, it's all a result of that one move, basically, and you got to make the right move. I mean, teams get criticized sometimes for making moves that look like they don't make sense, but
Oh,
you got to know what you're bringing into a situation.
yeah. This doesn't look right. Apparently, this is the last year's team, and yeah, that's the difference. It's Harrison Barnes, Kevin Herter. were starters
Mhm.
last year. Yeah, this doesn't look right. I thought,
Yeah, they did right. Barnes was the starter. Herder was a good shooter for them.
yeah,
But you see, if you see those guys as opposed and you replace them with DeRozan, theoretically it sounds like a good move. But
yeah,
Barnes and Herder played defense. They took open shots. They didn't stop the ball.
yeah. This is the 2022-23 team. They had Davion Mitchell. Malik Monk was coming off the bench.
Mhm.
Terrence Davis was pretty darn good
Yeah,
for his role. Rashawn Holmes, well, Holmes was probably at the end of the line there, but
yeah, he
yeah,
wasn't playing well at all at that point.
yeah, but these teams look a lot better than what we see so far here. This looks so thin, and that's not the Kings team that we have gotten used to. And now Kevin Huerter is, if this is correct, that he's kind of become an afterthought for that team.
Hmm.
But yeah, and it's all because DeMar DeRozan just demands so much of the ball
Right.
because of his play style, and people love him, man. People love him. Oh yeah, he's a throwback. He's a throwback to when everybody lived in the mid range. He's the mid range god, DeMar DeRozan. You know, he's every old head's favorite player. And you can see why the mid-range game is disappearing because when you got a guy like DeMar DeRozan dominating the mid-range, it has no team
Yeah,
success to show
but
for it.
you can
There it
be good
is.
at the mid range and not be a ball stopper.
No, I don't know, man. It's well, we'll get to it. I want to actually have some fun and check out some of the stats over at NBA.com's website
Hmm.
and see if who. And I did a little bit of that before earlier today on one of my breaks. And yeah, DeRozan from 15 to 19 feet away, he dominates that category
Hmm.
in terms of of field goal attempts. So that for sure he is the mid-range god. But there's other players that that do just as well, and do I even dare say are even a little bit more effective and efficient in that regard. So, well, we'll get to it in just a little bit. Yeah, I actually had to set it up here, but that's the Sacramento Kings. Let's go back to your team one more time and finish up here. So we got to talking about the Kings. So you got both Sabonis and Keegan Murray. Look at your bench. There's Klay Thompson, who, yeah, this is the dip of his career right here. We're living the decline of Klay Thompson, fantasy
Yeah, I
league
mean, I picked up
player.
Thompson late,
Uh, te-
figuring maybe
okay, yeah.
give me some points, but playing off of Luka and Kyrie, he'd be wide open. But and he's had a couple of good, he had a good stretch there for a while, but then he fell off.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's yeah, especially against the Warriors. That there was that game with a couple of games, the Mavericks and the Warriors, where he really showed up big. But it just seems like that's the only games that he actually hypes himself up for. Trey Murphy, we were wondering. I think that's the kid who got the big extension with the Pelicans this year,
With the
right? And
Pelicans, yeah.
we were kind of wondering why he was getting that money, but it turns out, yeah, he's averaging 21 points per game, chipping in 5 rebounds, good for 35.9 fantasy points. So you're getting some production there. You got Alex Sarr, the rookie, who potentially might be the one who could step up for you, but if he does, he'll barely be for 30 points per game. I don't think you're getting 30 points on average from him this year. You'll get lucky if you get 29. That's just my humble opinion.
Yeah.
Shaden Sharp, another Blazers player who's again kind of has cap size limited potential because of all the other mouths that the Blazers have to feed. The Scoot Hendersons, the who's the other guy? Simons, your guy Anthony Simons, and there was one oh and Denny Avdija, right? Who's kind of having a renaissance year for the Blazers. And then Shaden Sharp kind of gets lost in the shuffle there. Daniel Gafford actually surprising me as always. A solid contributor, not a game-changing contributor, but solid as far as temporary centers go. You could do a lot worse than him, actually, all things considered. And then Nick Richards, who is always a guy that is on the periphery of things, right? He's always a guy we always keep an eye on. Unfortunately, you took him, but as you can see, only averaging 21.8 minutes per game, which means he's only averaging 22 fantasy points per game. Solid but unspectacular. I mean, do you
Yeah, I mean, I
see?
took Richards for potential and also because I figured he was going to get traded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he did get traded, and he's starting to get more minutes there. Again, it might not work out for me this season, but that was kind of what I figured. If he got somewhere where he was actually going to get minutes, He's to me he's a double-double guy easily. He blocks shots.
Yeah.
For like a secondary center or even the wild card position there, it might have been something that I could have worked with. And Gafford just kind of puts up numbers every year at some point. If you get when he once he earns minutes, he just kind of gets it done. I was surprised. I've been hearing rumors that Dallas might be looking to trade him
Mm.
because they don't want to pay him basically because he's going to be a free agent.
Oh wow.
So they were looking to possibly trade him for another big who they could have control over because again, teams are trying to avoid that apron.
Right.
But he's such a good fit there. You'd really have to get. I mean, to me, if they give him up, I mean, are they that confident in the kid? If they're that confident in the kid, why are they playing Gafford over him? It's kind of like, well, what are you saying? What are you doing?
Yeah, it does become a situation, but you also got to figure out the Mavericks have to figure out what they want to do this year. Are they going for it or are they just gonna take another L this year and hopefully Luka Doncic stays healthy next season? And that's the one thing I used to hate about Luka Doncic is that he will just mysteriously go on these long stretches where he doesn't play. Um, and the Mavericks are feeling that again this year, and it's kind of creating a domino effect as you're explaining there with the
Yeah, I
rest of the
mean,
team.
the thing with Luka to me is he's not Jokic.
Mm,
Okay, so he's expected to actually play on the perimeter and guard on the perimeter.
right.
Jokic is down low. He doesn't need to be fast, and he can play with that, beer belly body down there, and it works for him. I was like, but on the perimeter, you got to be in shape in this league. And to me, he can't keep up.
Yeah,
He's not he doesn't seem dedicated. He doesn't, to get in that weight room. He's got an interesting body type for out there.
yeah, that's unfortunately you got to call it, the way you see it, a spade the spade, so to speak. And Luca, he's getting a little exposed. I mean, we see it where he kind of looks like he's on skates
Yeah,
sometimes, or not even on
and
skates. He looks like a guy who is on ice but with no skate or any other
and one of the things that
weapons.
I hate about players is a guy who on every single play he's complaining to the refs. Every single play. And at some point the refs they don't hear you when you do that. To
Yeah.
me, they're just like, all right, that's not going to help you in any way if you're complaining on every play.
Yeah, and then the reputation goes, "Oh, this guy's a complainer, just ignore him." And
Right.
it becomes a thing.
Absolutely. You've seen other guys do that before, and it's you're going to get ignored.
Yeah, that's a good point there.
You don't want to constantly show up the refs. You have to kind of build some credibility. So that when you go over and say something, it's kind of like, all right, could you look at this? They'll look at it more closely
Yeah.
sometimes. You see guys go over and talk to them in a certain way. But if you're just going to yell and scream and throw your hands up after every play, you know, as much as you want your referees to be arbitrary judges, that's got to bother them.
Oh yeah, that the whole human element that people keep
Yeah, it's
telling you
human
about.
nature,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, getting some things ready on the other screen here to keep discussing. But getting back, I mean, do you see? I guess Trey Murphy,
I like
you know,
Murphy.
is
He's
one
playing
guy
better, and again, that number could get better. Lots of rumors this week. Again, we're talking about trades. Is that they might move on from why is his name going away from me?
because he's irrelevant. Oh,
Ingram.
I thought you were talking about Zion. Okay, sure.
No, Zion's not getting moved. I can't. Who's taking that deal?
The Knicks.
You think Leon Rose is bringing Zion in?
Yeah.
Has anything that Leon Rose has done preclude you to think that he's moving what's on this team right now for Zion Williamson?
Not at the moment,
I love hearing people talk about this, but it cracks me up.
but maybe he's waiting for the right time. Maybe he's waiting for the right player. Maybe Zion is the right player. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was New York. I thought you gotta make big splashes because it's the big city and you gotta all this other
And again,
nonsense.
Felipe, I go back to asking you, what has Leon Rose done in his time in New York that leads you to believe that this is a move he would make?
Maybe not him, but maybe the guy above him. You still
But
got
the guy
James
above
Dolan
him
as the
has
owner.
completely stayed off hands.
How long? Come on. Uh,
He's look what he's
It's
completely stayed off hands since he
it's
handed it over
only
to
a matter
Leon.
of time before his ego gets the better of him, and he's like, "All right, how can I
See, but
take credit for this?"
the thing with Dolan that people don't realize is he doesn't actually care about the Knicks. And I've been telling
Hmm.
people that for years. He's a hockey guy, he's a music guy,
Yeah, he's a music guy for
and
sure.
he always used to interfere. And finally, according to people, because I know people that actually work at MSG, they said he just kind of said, I'm done with everybody criticizing me. I'm going to bring in somebody and just leave it alone.
Hmm.
And that's what he did with Leon, and he's just let Leon do it. And so far, you can't really argue with the results at this point.
No, you can't. And then Tom Thibodeau, once again, he's proving himself yet again why he's one of the best coaches of his era. Uh, yeah, he could be a little bit of a hothead at times, but you can't deny the what do you call it? The results. It's
No, I
it's
mean,
it's
you
there.
see, I tell people all the time, I said, you watch guys play for him, and he brings out the best in guys. And
Yeah,
you see
yeah.
when those guys leave him, they're not the same guys.
Hmm.
And anybody who's ever played for him talks about him like he's God. Like all his ex-players love him,
Yeah.
and they have nothing but appreciation for anything that went on. I don't think I've ever heard a player badmouth Tom Thibodeau that played for
No,
him.
in Chicago there was mutiny with those same guys that love him. They were the same guys that were like fed up with him, including guys like Joakim Noah, Jimmy Butler. But there was a lot of internal strife going on. I mean, we're talking about
Hmm.
them seeing Derrick Rose get preferential treatment and Jimmy Butler slowly but surely rising through the ranks and this becoming his team.
Right.
Why is he getting preferential treatment? I'm out here with the young guys. I'm out here with the rest of the team practicing with them, and D Rose is out there, having personal massages, having personal days off for load management, so to speak. And Butler's out there playing 40 minutes a game and every single 82 game season or as
I
close
mean,
to it. So that
you
became a
know,
thing. And then the worst thing about Thibodeau, which I'm not sure if he's learned this or not, but the dude lives in a gym. Like it's a good and bad thing because he's always spying. He's always like lurking around, and players took it a certain way here in Chicago after a while. The same guys, like you said, the same guys that were praising him were the same guys that were fed up with him, and uh, they literally would go elsewhere to practice or go elsewhere to get their workout in because they
yeah,
didn't
I
want
mean,
him looking at
again,
him
and
at
it's
them.
funny because to me, there's different types of players. And if you're not lockstep with the kind of players you bring in for a coach like Thibs, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's what they
It's
did
kind of
in
like
New
the
York.
San
Yeah,
Antonio Spurs model also.
yeah.
Pop has his guys. He wants them to do things a certain way. He wants you to practice a certain way. He wants you to play a certain way. If you don't fit in with that and you're the GM and you're bringing in guys who aren't about that,
Hmm.
it's his fault. And that's one of the things I've liked so far about the Rose Thibodeau, connection is that they're clearly on the same page.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's no denying that. There's no denying that. And you're
You
right.
know,
They're bringing in players that are to Thibodeau's liking,
right.
right? That's the most important thing is that that they um that they buy into what he's trying to do there. And
Hmm.
you got Michael Bridges, Josh Hart, like you mentioned, Jalen Brunson, who's your prototypical Tom Thibodeau point guard.
Yeah.
No denying that. And then you got Karl Anthony Towns, who has history with the guy. And these are the results. It's happy times in New York again.
And look, they've done a great job drafting guys.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, well, they drafted guys that they traded. I said, yeah, but building up trade value for your draft picks and being able to get other guys that you feel fit better is the way that you do things. Because you can't always do everything through free agency in this league because of the cap.
Right.
Because people criticize the RJ Barrett. I've heard people criticize the Emmanuel Quickly deal,
Yeah.
Grimes, all these guys. All those guys were late first round picks, except for Barrett. And
Yeah.
he turned them into OG. He turned them into McHale. He's brought in other guys. He brought in Hart, whichever. Oh my God, that when the Hart trade went down, let me tell you, Knicks fans were insane. How could you trade Cam Reddish?
Oh, come
Who?
on. From Duke.
Who? Where is Cam Reddish? Is he back at Duke? Did he have like a year of eligibility left? I don't know. I don't know where he is.
These are the Lakers. I think I'm not 100% sure.
You know, but the point, is like you hear the stuff that people talk about, and it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
They wanted OG for like the last 3 years. They finally were able to pull it off last year. You know, IQ's contract was expiring. I love Barrett, but he was, him and Randall were not a good fit.
right.
They were trying to trade Randall for Cat since before that trade. And one of the things that I talked about to somebody before was if they had made that trade earlier, I wonder if the Barrett trade gets made,
Hmm.
you know? And I love OG. OG's, when healthy, which is my only issue with that trade when it first went down was that I was worried he was going to be hurt all the time. And he did get hurt last year.
Right.
Because of the way he plays, he's just relentless,
Yeah.
and he throws his body, into everything. Um, but I wonder if that trade gets made if they had gotten Towns earlier, then that trade had gone down.
Yeah, but
To me, Randall and Barrett were just not copacetic.
as you can see, I'm showing off the depth chart over there over by Real GM, realgm.com for the New York
Okay.
Knicks, and yeah, every one of these guys is a Tibbs type of guy. From Brunson at point guard, Bridges, Hart, OG, and Karl Anthony Town. Those are the types of players that Thibodeau loves. Cameron
Yeah.
Payne, the backup point guard. Man, nobody brings out the best. Nobody brings out the best out of like these backup point guards like Tom Thibodeau can.
Payne is one of those guys who, when he's on another team, you hate him.
Mm.
I
Hmm.
have hated him for several years now. He was on Philly, when he was on Phoenix, like he would always blow up
Yeah.
against us.
Yeah.
And him being on the team, you just watch his energy.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys like he comes off the bench and he's just energy.
Hmm.
Even when he's not shooting well, his energy is infectious. I say that to people all the time. I was like, and some you need that off the bench. I said, because not everyone off the bench is giving you 20.
Right.
I was like, well, and I was really happy they brought back Precious. I loved how he played last year. He stepped up when guys were hurt. And he just seems to fit. And he defends well. He gets on the boards. He blocks shots. He runs. He's just everywhere kind of guy. Uh, I think the bench is built really well because people criticize the points, but you got five guys in the starting lineup who are going to score points.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's mixing and matching them. Deuce can shoot. And he disrupts immediately when he gets in the game. He's just a guy on defense who, people are like he's 6'2". I was like, yeah, but he's got a 6'8" wingspan.
Mm.
And he guards twos and threes off the bench sometimes, and you're like, what is it? How is he doing that? Uh,
No, like I said, it's the prototypical Tom Thibodeau team, and most importantly, you got Precious bless me, as the backup center there listed there, and that's a hustle. That's a hustle player, the type of guy that Thibodeau gets from Central Casting,
yeah,
that like the Taj Gibson role type of sort of thing. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, it's just like you said, it's from the top down. If you don't want to include what's his face, Dolan, okay, fine. But you're right. It's starts with Leon Rose, and they're in sync with Thibodeau, and the players are buying into Thibodeau's philosophy. They still
One
play
of
too many minutes, but that's a Thibodeau thing as well. You got to take the
no,
good
I
with
mean,
that.
but like I said, early on in the year, there was a lot of injuries to our bench.
Yeah,
And so he was going with a really short rotation. The last few weeks now with Shamit back, they're starting to get more minutes. Shamit's finally starting to get into a groove because people were complaining when he came back, he's not playing. And I'm like, he's winded. He was going out there for like 10 minutes and you could see he was winded because he had no legs on the shot. And then this last week, he's starting to hit. He's lethal from 3-point range when he's able to play. So that adds some punch to the bench. And
yeah,
when Mitch gets back, that's going to add some serious board work and defense off the bench
absolutely,
also.
absolutely. All right. Well, switching back to fantasy. That's your team that I'm showing off here. Like I said, it's a good team. You just gotta figure out where this the extra oomph is gonna come from, and that'll be a big difference. But yeah, I could also see a lot of limited upside. I don't know who could step up. I mean, maybe Jamal Murray if Westbrook gets hurt, or maybe Jokic misses any significant amount of time. Maybe he's the one who becomes the primary usage player for that team. But we've seen Murray, and this is pretty much his cap. It's around he hovers around just a tad below 40 points. It's so close yet so far. And maybe Banchero if he plays like he did at the beginning of the season. But boy, with the Magic finding new a new rotation or a new philosophy on offense, maybe I don't know if Banchero is going to be able to match that what he was doing at the beginning of the season. But that would be your only hope is if Banchero just plays well, way over his head. So that's your team. Is there another team you want to look at before we move on to something else here?
I know we were talking about a couple of the other teams in the middle
Yeah,
there.
let's go back to the spreadsheet. Maybe that'll rekindle your memory. But what else was I looking at? Let's see. Oh, this is the previous. So I think I had it like this: average point differential. Oops. Oh, that's why, because it's should be largest to smallest. Sorry about that. Well, we did see a big, uh, I guess, a bump in increase on
Mm.
Erin's team. She was the ninth best team. There's a 12-team league, so she was the ninth best team in terms of average point differential back in December. Now she's moved up to seventh spot. Um, she's averaging a little. She's right there on the verge of getting to 300 points. As you know, if you, I think you've noticed, James, that if you can average more than 300 points, that's like half the battle. So she's
Hmm.
right there, but she needs to score more. So let's look at. I don't think we looked at her team last time either. So let's take a quick look at the Maple Mambas. And the one thing you're gonna notice about her is that's right, she is Canadian. So there's gonna be a lot of Canadian players, or used to be Canadian, or they used to play for the Raptors. There's Damian Lillard. Oh, there's Damian Lillard, who's having a pretty good season, despite the fact that he's the second banana for the Milwaukee Bucks. But yeah, he has limited potential in terms of getting to those 50 points. CJ McCollum, Russ Westbrook, who's seen a renaissance, so to speak, in Denver. Michael Porter Jr. Remember, we were kicking ourselves that we weren't able to get Michael Porter. Well, this is the problem when you get a guy like Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah,
Very
I mean,
gifted player.
I wasn't high on Michael Porter.
Yeah,
I just, like I said, to me, there's Murray and Jokic are like your primary guys there.
right.
Everyone else is kind of gonna, everyone else to me is up and down. Porter has a good night. Gordon has a good night. But you're never gonna get more. He's averaging 30 to me
Fantasy
as
points. Yeah,
as the third, fourth guy. That's because seeing the problem to me with Porter is unlike Gordon, Porter is points.
yeah,
That's it. With Gordon, he might score 15 points, but he might get you 10 or 12 boards. He might, he passes the ball. He
yeah,
might run into like a few assists. Porter hasn't seen a pass that he would want to make.
yeah. That's not his game, no.
If he gets an assist, it's like an accident. Uh,
And he doesn't provide anything in terms of steals and blocks.
no, not at all. There's
So he's a
nothing in the
very limited
in my
player.
favorite new named category, by the way, which is stocks that people keep calling them now. So
Stop. I'm sorry,
yeah, they're
stop.
using a lot of places, a lot of sites, and on the games they're using it as a stat now. So it's steals and blocks.
Oh, okay.
So
I
they're
think
calling it stocks.
yeah.
Combined defensive metric basically.
They do have a hustle category. I'm just making
Yes,
I'm just
that's the official Josh Hart category where he's like the number one dude.
yeah, where offensive loose balls are recovered, defensive loose balls recovered. They have charges drawn, although everybody
Yeah.
well, I have to figure out a way to filter and make sure that I have the right type of players there. But yeah, that's something that we can take a look at before the show ends. But getting back to Aaron's team, yeah, I remember we were pretty. I think a lot of us were high on RJ Barrett in Toronto, and yeah, he's
Yeah.
playing a lot better in terms of the fantasy points. I think with the Knicks, he was always capped at around 35 fantasy points per game, and in
Hmm.
Toronto, he's now over 40, so that's a good thing. There's our guy, DeMar DeRozan. Yeah, kind of like the Michael Porter thing, where yeah, he's gonna score points, but he's not gonna get you much of anything else.
Right.
Doesn't rebound, doesn't pass. He does at least he'll average one assist per game, one steal per game. Sorry. Um, but yeah, 35.48 points, fantasy points is pretty darn good, but we're trying to take a it's another good team. Like any other year, you and Aaron's team would be pretty darn solid, but it all boils down to how do you get from this level to this level up here in
Like I said,
this
all the
format?
teams in the middle are like hovering around the same area. Point differential.
Yeah.
Like you said, Angels is 1.9, mine's is 3.9, Aaron's is 6.6. Um, a lot of it has been, some of it has been luck. Several of us have lost. I know Aaron's lost a couple of games also that were pretty like close games. I've lost like 3 games where the point differential was like 5 or 6 points.
Mm. Yeah.
And if you look at some of those weeks, I lost somebody for the week. Aaron lost, like injuries for a lot of the middle of the pack teams is really what separated where we have 3 distinct groups, like you said, the top four, the middle four, and then the bottom four. It's just healthy, healthy is all the way at the top.
Yeah.
To me, the least amount of injuries and the best performances. The middle of the pack has pretty solid teams, but injuries have hurt several of us in little close games. With some of the top or healthier teams, where you
Hmm.
guys were rolling with all, with your healthy squads early in the year while we were decimated. And
Yeah.
then the bottom teams are just, I don't know, a lot of things that didn't work out.
Yeah. Yeah, superstar players who are not playing like superstars, and I guess we could take a look one more time at some of those teams. But yeah, and I'm just trying to figure out, okay, so where's Aaron gonna get these big points? Who's gonna step up? Maybe RJ Barrett can take another leap forward and average maybe get that average up to 42 points, fantasy points per game. Maybe Pascal Siakam might bring it up
Yeah, I
to
mean, like,
38
see, the
points,
thing with
fantasy
the thing
points per
with
game.
Barrett to me is I figured he was going to be between 40 and 45.
Really?
So he's kind of right around that area. But when IQ and Barnes are both healthy, that's kind of his area to me because IQ
Yeah.
and Barnes are going to take up some of those other numbers.
And
Um,
then it's a
I don't
solid
know.
bench too, by the way, for Aaron's team. Really solid bench, but it's unspectacular at the same time. Yeah, you got John Collins who's hurt. What's wrong with him? He has an illness. Okay, so I guess he would be starting, and if he starts, maybe that's the difference maker for Aaron. But other than that, I mean, a lot of these guys, they don't. Let's say
She does,
that some
she
of these
does,
guys.
she
Go ahead.
doesn't have anyone who's going to give her 50.
She
Like all her,
doesn't.
all her, all her guys seem to be in the 35 point range this year, except for
Yeah.
Barrett, who's at 40,
And Lillard too, but you know,
and Lillard, right?
he's been hovering around 40, 45 for a long time on average. I think one year he averaged close to 50, but then the next year he went back down to 41. And again, these are great players, but again, this is a game of inches, and if we got to figure out, okay, where's the who's stepping up, who's going to step up their game this year, and there's really the answer is nobody on Aaron's team. And like I said, her team in other years are playoff bound probably. Not this year though. No, not against my team. She has no chance in hell. I'll just put it out there. She has no chance in hell against my
Incoming
team.
message.
The way my team's running on all cylinders at the moment. Um, but yeah, solid, unspectacular bench. These are just solid guys. But put it this way, Stephon Castle, for example, right? If the Spurs get decimated by injuries, Stephon Castle is not going to be, you're not going to see like a major uptick on Stephon Castle,
No.
right? I'm not being mean about it. It's just, that's just the way it is. Stephon Castle is not that guy. Just out of curiosity, who else would the Spurs have as this thing loads up? So we go away from the Knicks and we go to the San Antonio Spurs. If this thing would stop loading up all these stupid ads, we can take a look at the Spurs. But we know it's Victor Wembanyama and it's Jeremy. So I'm trying to do this off memory, James. So if you know players, just shut them out. Jeremy
I don't remember
Sochan,
who's on the Spurs anymore.
Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson coming off the bench, Harrison Barnes. There it is. There's Wemby, Barnes, Stefan. Oh my God, Castle is starting. So what they have him on the 3 and D role, but if he becomes a primary player, like the primary usage player, I don't think it's that big of a difference. Like he's still only averaging maybe close, like maybe 30 fantasy points per game if he's lucky. If all these guys start getting down with injuries, and that's not saying much.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that whole offense is run through basically Wemby
yeah,
and Paul pick and rolling. Vassell's a good shooter. He hasn't
yeah,
shown, much more than that at this point.
yeah. and another, stand-up shooter, post up. What's the new term that they like to use? Uh, Stand in the corner guy, Harrison Barnes. That's
Yeah.
his role now at this point of his career. Keldon Johnson has seen a dip in production. I know this because he's been on my team like twice already, and each time he gets a little bit worse before he gets a little bit better. So he had to go,
I
unfortunately.
mean, Kelvin Johnson's I don't understand what he did to fall out of favor.
I don't get it either.
I thought he was a pretty good scorer over there, and then all of a sudden it's just kind of like, all right, we're not going to play him anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I mean, skills wise, how is Barnes and Castle better than Keldon Johnson from what we've seen in previous years?
Well, as you know, James, it's not about how talented you are. It's just can you play the role?
Hmm.
And it turns out Castle and Barnes can play the role, and Keldon Johnson doesn't. Because Keldon
Yeah.
Johnson, because I've had him on my team, and like, oh yes, he's finally turning the corner. Yes, and he'll put up some monster numbers for himself. Like he'll put up games where he'll score 35 fantasy points, and then the next day he'll only get you 10, which is just enough to make you lose your hair, right? But
Yeah.
again, you now are seeing that maybe there's something in his game where
I
it
mean,
doesn't fit
he
the
is a bit
Spurs.
more of an ISO player than I guess
Hmm.
what Pop usually likes.
And ironic is that Pop is nowhere to be found at the moment.
Yeah, but
So
they're still running his philosophy.
absolutely, yeah. Oh, look, they got some guy named David Duke on this team.
You know, that's definitely some sort of bad juju.
Yeah, that's you're being punished for having David Duke on your team. Anyway, so that's Erin's team. A solid but unspectacular team, and that would explain her record and her point differential and things of that nature. We said we were going to take a look at a bad team really quick. We didn't get a chance to talk about Mike Harvey's team last time, so let's take a one last look and see what's up with him. Because the problem with him is that Luka Doncic. We just talked about Luka.
Oh, well, yeah, now that yeah, but Luca was there most of the year. It's not like he was out all year.
Yeah, but okay. So even though he has Luka for the most for at the beginning of the season, this the rest of the team is just underwhelming to say the least. He had
D'Angelo Russell,
Peyton
Levert.
Pritchard, Karis LeVert, who sucks, and now what's wrong with him? Wrist. He has a wrist injury.
Mhm.
Desmond Bain, who only does well when John Morant is nowhere to be found, and
Well, again, it's really hard to put up numbers without being able to touch the ball.
we look at Scotty Barnes. We were just talking about him because of RJ Barrett on
Right.
Aaron's
See,
team.
again, you have Barrett and Barnes. I said 40 to 45, right?
Yeah, and they're kind of split the atom between the two. Also, he has Benedict Matherin, sorry,
Matherin, yeah.
which normally I would bash him for being a homer about things with the Pacers. He's a big Pacers fan, but he's actually doing pretty solid. But it's not gonna get you over the top. Jared Allen, we know about his offensive liabilities, and Evan Mobley has kind of on my team. Evan Mobley has kind of overtaken him as the main
Yeah.
big man on that team. Kyle
Yeah,
Kuzma is
and again, that
go ahead.
was another one of those where having Allen and Mobley to me doesn't work.
It works for me, man.
Cleveland has played great this year.
Works for me.
But to me, that dynamic sometimes on the court just doesn't work out well.
No, man. See, it's simple. Although I'm kind of shocked that Allen is not averaging a full block per game, but maybe because he's not playing over 30 minutes. He's only averaging 29 minutes. That's a game of inches, right? He's
Hmm.
not even averaging 10 rebounds a game, which is really surprising because that's. But yeah, he has limited upside because of his offensive incapabilities. He doesn't shoot the three. Yeah, field goal percentage at 70.2%, but that's because he's mostly. I bet you he's mostly scoring in the paint
That's all dunks.
within five. Okay,
Yeah, I
that'll.
mean, if
Yeah,
you watch them, he's dunking the ball or someone's fouling him.
yeah, he's a DeAndre Jordan type of player with
Hmm.
a little bit more offense, right? Kyle Kuzma, that you could tell he's miserable in Washington. Amen Thompson, like we
Well,
talked
he's
about the
miserable,
Rockets.
but the
Go
difference
ahead.
with Kuzma this year is that he's not playing as much.
Yeah, averaging 27 minutes per game, which
Slowly but surely, Sarr is becoming more of that four, which is where he was kind of playing last year.
yeah.
So they're kind of starting to fade him out. Again, he's another trade candidate.
We got Amen Thompson again, nice young player, but as I found out the hard way, there's just way too many mouths to feed in Houston, and it just becomes like a division of labor type of situation where we don't know who the primary ball handler is, we don't know who the primary usage player is, we don't know who the
If you look
primary
at a team
scorer is.
decimated by injuries, look at this bench.
Yeah,
You got
Uh,
Doncic, you got Holmgren, and you got Brandon Miller.
yeah, that would explain why he has been struggling. I mean, he's pretty much in dead last at this point. But
Mhm.
at least I will give Harvey this. There are some players on his team that can save his season from total embarrassment. I know that maybe he'll want to stay on the bottom four so he can get a shot at the first pick overall next year. But you know my philosophy, man. You play to win the game. Like, what's the point of having a top four pick if you're not gonna do anything? And we just found out, like the players who who were picked in the first round in our draft this past year, the two top 2 points getters on average were picked on the second half of that first round, as opposed to the first half.
Well,
LeBron
'cause, I
James and
mean,
Cat.
some of that has to do with the fact that we kept a player.
Well, that's what I mean.
So technically, it's already the second round.
Yeah, yeah.
Value wise. So you start to when you especially when you start to get into that second round, sometimes it's kind of like preference.
I'm just saying
And
that
some
it's.
guys will draft. It's like, all right, I kept a center, so I'm going to draft a guard.
I'm just saying it's possible to get a really outstanding player, no matter where the hell you're picking.
No, I'm saying, but sometimes people draft in a way where I like in the first round of like this year's draft, I was going for whoever I thought was going to be the best player.
Yeah,
I had Sabonis, but if the best player available at that point was a center, I would have taken the center, especially because we know it's a premium position.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But some people, if you watched who they kept and then watched who they drafted and who was available, they did it by position. And
yeah,
sometimes that works out, and sometimes that will bite you.
yeah, yeah. I know that I went out of my way to draft as many big men as possible because that's been my weakness for years in this league. So
Hmm.
I made it a priority this year, and lo and behold, my team's unstoppable. I'm the
You know,
juggernaut.
I tell people all the time that the bigs get hurt, so you need to have more bigs.
Not on my team. Shit, they're built like I only pick the guys who are built like
Well, I mean, so
oxen.
again, it's worked out so far.
I'm telling you, man.
Obviously.
Well, historically speaking, my teams have always been pretty healthy, even when I had Luka Doncic. But yeah, I
Hmm.
just talked about that. Even that's one thing I was frustrated about Doncic for many years is that he's just disappeared. And now that I have SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander as my primary franchise player, it's been a breath of fresh air. He's dependable. He always shows up. If he does miss games, it's just one or two at a time, and not he's not gone for weeks.
Right.
So. Uh,
Yeah, like I told you, I said people are gonna get, miss a game here or there. I mean, that's what it is. But when you have guys who are consistently out 3 to 4 weeks, a couple of months, that's not someone who I would like to invest like a high draft pick in.
Yeah, Brandon Miller out for the season, which is a shame. But yeah, he's one of those guys. In other groups, especially Harry's Sports Witness group, there's a lot of talk.
Hmm.
Oh, the NBA, it's just a bunch of guys who shoot 3 pointers. Brandon Miller, you don't. That's the guy you don't want him to be shooting the mid range. He's horrible from that range. That's why they have him shoot 3 pointers as opposed to 2 pointers. Chet Holmgren, what's up with him?
He's,
He's
he's
maybe by February he'll be back with a hip injury, and then Luka calf. Oh yeah, he's gonna be out for a while. But yeah, for yeah, we named the three one of the three better players on his team, but then Harvey then has like all these other players who are just useless. At least Aaron's team had guys who can average over 20
hmm
points.
Yeah,
That's not
absolutely.
Harvey's bench here. Harvey is very limited, and it's too many homer picks. This is the dangers of picking guys from your favorite teams. Is that you can't bring yourself to drop them even if there's better options out there on
Hmm.
waiver wire. And that is three teams that we highlighted from our fantasy league. I'm hoping that these are the teams that I didn't get a chance to highlight the last time we had a show on this one. And then you can see the other player I was going to mention was LaMelo Ball. Last month, Harry and Joe's team, who was their player? It was Jason Tatum was a top dog on their team, averaging 51 points a game. And now this time around, it's LaMelo Ball averaging 50.1 fantasy points per game, but he's hurt again. And
That's
yeah, it's par for the course.
all the Ball brothers.
Yeah, all the Ball brothers are hurt.
It's got to be the shoes.
It's got to be the shoes. But hey, I was told that hey, it's fine because they're making a lot of money. So LeVar is Father of the Year for 7 consecutive years from now on. But other than that, it's been the same players on every team who have been the leading points getter for better or for worse. And we talked about a lot of these guys already. But yeah, it's so we'll see how these how your team and all these other mid-level teams do the rest of the season.
Anthony Davis just get hurt, I think?
Anthony Davis,
I thought he got hurt yesterday or the day before.
that wouldn't surprise me. He's always hurt. Yeah, and if any team's gonna be vulnerable, it'd be Alex's team, just based on the point differentials and all things like that.
Hmm.
But I guess if we're gonna look at one good team, it's gonna be Alex, because that would be your only chance, is if Alex's team falters, and then that opens the door for guys like for teams like you and Aaron's team. And there's Darius Garland already with the Red Cross. What's up with him? He's just resting. Okay. There's Anthony Davis with the Red Cross as always. Abdomen. Okay, so he's gonna be out for a while. And then we're still waiting for Kevin Durant to be out for a while. And then De'Aaron Fox, depending where he gets traded, that might affect them. I thought I saw someone say they should get traded to the Pistons. And as a Kate Cunningham owner, I say absolutely not. Leave Kate Cunningham out alone. Like I don't want him turning into Scotty Barnes. Uh, Kate
Yeah, I mean,
Cunningham.
I don't I don't see that. I mean, again, teams do dumb things, but to me, Fox and Cunningham would not be a great fit.
As far
You,
as the Go ahead. I'm sorry.
you want to surround Cunningham with shooters, not guys that are going to pound the ball.
Yeah. Brandon Ingram with an ankle injury, so those are always unpredictable. DeAndre Hunter might get some run now that Jalen Johnson is out. Maybe it's DeAndre Hunter time, but how long have we been saying that about DeAndre Hunter? It's
Yeah.
DeAndre Hunter time, and he just lets us down. Hey yo, the Sunmu. Now there's a guy when the Bulls need when the Bulls have nobody, and it's Ayo's show. He's a guy who can post up big points. So maybe he's the big difference maker that Alex is looking for. There's Malcolm
Yeah.
Brogdon, who's well, I'm sorry, go.
Yeah, no, AO has shown when he gets the opportunity to play. Unfortunately, you guys are stuck with that ball situation there.
Yeah, it's yeah.
And one of Ball's best assets to me was his defense, but now with the injuries, he looks like a shell of himself on defense.
Yeah, that was expected. I mean, the crippling knee injuries and all the other injuries that come with it. I mean, Lonzo, we all know how
Hmm.
marvelous of a player he was when he was
Yeah,
healthy.
I
Even when he
love
was
Lonzo.
even when he was struggling, there was he did other things that
Lonzo reminded
helped contribute.
me of Kid.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that. I think I was you and I talking about that,
Yeah,
and I agree with 100% that he reminds me a lot of Kid. Pass first, point guard, traditional floor general, and has the body to give fits to opposing perimeter players because of
right,
his length and just his willingness to play defense and just an overall wonderful player. That's why when the Bulls signed him, we were all excited. He was the glue. He's what made having DeRozan and Levine on the same team work. And when he
right.
went down, it stopped working. And now the Kings are experiencing firsthand what it's like to have DeMar DeRozan on your team. Malcolm Brogdon was that was a waste of a pick or waiver wire. I mean, Brogdon's not gonna do anything. Yeah, he's a foot injury. Trace Jackson Davis, nah, not on the Warriors. I mean, he might be like a guy like that just gets rebounds and blocks, but not on the Warriors. He's not going to get a lot of playing time. And then Carlton Carrington, I forgot what year he's in. I think this is his second season, but the
Hmm.
Wizards are a mess. A lot of talented players on that team, but they're just a giant mess. So it's affecting a guy like Carlton Carrington, who's very talented. Azwar Thompson, he picked the wrong Thompson, and Azwar is only averaging 19.7 minutes per game. So this is a waste of a roster spot, unfortunately. Just because the Pistons are loaded this season, which I thought that was something I would never say this soon. The Pistons are loaded, and Thompson is kind of getting lost in the shuffle there. But there's Alex's team. Lots of minds to go through on this team. So if anyone's gonna open the door for you mid-level teams, it's gonna be
Yeah,
Alex's team. And then Primo just lost Jalen Johnson, right? Or was it?
yeah.
Yeah, he just lost Jalen Johnson. He was just complaining about that.
Hmm.
So
You
there's
see
a
something?
chance.
Who has Paul George? Because I know someone said something about George being hurt also, and I
Well,
don't even know
Primo
who.
Primo mentioned that, but he's a 76ers fan, so I'm not sure if he
Oh,
was meant
okay. I didn't
if
know
he's
if he
not.
had George because you mentioned George also.
Let's find out. There's Jalen
Oh yeah, he
Johnson.
does
Oh
have
yeah,
George.
yeah, he does have Paul George. Wow. So there you go, man. The door has been opened. The two bubble teams, so to speak, in the for the playoff hunt, the number 3, number 4 teams, have opened a door for you guys. So all you guys got to do is get to winning, right?
There you go.
It's easier said than done. This is
Absolutely.
this is Primo's team. Yeah, even the starting lineup has a bunch of injuries. But when Primo's team is firing all cylinders, his team is dangerous too.
Oh, look, Mark Williams is hurt. Shocking.
Yeah, yeah, that opens the floodgates for Nick Richards. Ooh, foot injury for a big man.
No, Nick Richards is in Phoenix.
Oh, I thought he was on your. I'm sorry.
He got traded to Phoenix.
I forgot
That's what,
about that. Shame on
yeah,
me.
they're trying to move what's his name? Nurkic, whatever.
Yes, yes, Nurkic. Yep.
Yeah, because he doesn't play no defense. That's why they traded for Richards. They wanted Richards.
Which is ironic because that's the only reason to have Yusuf Nurkic on your team is because he plays defense. So, but
I
yeah,
mean, to me, Nurkic is not a great defender. He's a rebounder, but he's also a rebounder to me in the way that Enes Kanter was a rebounder.
hey man, he
He's
just has to stand in front of the rim,
he's not
man.
evacuating the paint.
He just has to stand there. That's all he has to do. Just has to stand there. All right, enough fantasy talk. I could talk about this till the cows come home, but I do have on the other screen ready to go. I have three things that we can look at.
Okay.
All right. The three things, and I'll leave it up to you as to what you want to look at. We can either look at the defensive field goal percentage, individual defensive field goal percentage. We could look at some of these hustle stats that we talked about, or we could look at the at players sorted by field goal attempts between 15 and 19 feet from the rim to figure out who the best uh, mid-range game guy, perimeter player, or whatever from that range
Well,
is.
to
I'll leave
me,
it up to you.
for fantasy purposes, I'd say the hustle thing is something that a lot of people don't take into effect, and that's those secondary stats
Yeah,
that can make your player go, have a 10-point swing easily.
yeah. Blocks and steals are worth 2.5 points, but the problem there is that it's hard to predict. But one thing that we can certainly do is figure out if how these players get those points. And you see right there at the top of the
And
deflections leaderboard, Dyson Daniels, who's averaging what?
interestingly, there's another league that I'm in, Felipe,
Yeah,
and they are one of the stats is now that they're using, and I forgot what it's one of those. I don't remember if it was the site that we use for baseball, but deflections is a thing.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. I
Uh,
I'll have to double check with CVS. I would love to have deflections as one of the things. I don't know how many points I would award. I don't want to give too much but as you can see, Dyson Daniels, who I think he leads the league in steals as well, steals per game, or
well,
at the
makes
very
sense.
least, he has active hands. But you know who else has active hands? Not Dyson Daniels, but maybe on the next tier below is Kelly Oubre, Nikola Jokic. To my
Jokic,
surprise, he's
yeah.
there. We got a couple of Oklahoma City Thunder and Cason Wallace and Jalen Williams. Jalen, not the other one. There's Paul
Hmm.
George, which is not surprising. He's been one of the better perimeter defending players of this generation. DeJounte Murray is kind of a shocker. I was not
Well,
expecting to
he's
see that.
always been a steals guy, and
Really,
he gets his hands in there when you watch him
I
play.
avoid him
Fox.
as I always avoid him, so I wouldn't know. Yeah, I'm not surprised about Darren Fox. Bam Adebayo. I mean, there's a reason why I always draft him, and that's one of them. Kyrie Irving's as a surprise there.
You know,
I did not see that coming.
he's not a great defender by any means. But one of the things that he's always done when you watch him, and sometimes it's because he's behind players, is he's really good at poking the ball away.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I can see that for sure.
And
Yeah.
he's reaching, so sometimes it's a steal, sometimes it's a foul.
Oh, there's
uh,
your guy OG
there's OG.
and Fred Van Fleet, which that's another one I'm surprised, but probably the same philosophy as Kyrie,
Yeah,
maybe.
so if you watch, some of the smaller guys are really good at that kind of thing. Because they're down low. The ball's down low when someone's driving. They're really good at stripping the ball down low because you're not going to get blocks, but you can contribute that way.
There's Wemby. I'm not surprised that he's up in the leaderboard in deflections. I mean,
I
he
mean,
stands on the court and he's already
he's got that
deflecting balls.
wingspan.
He's like a pterodactyl out there. There's LaMelo Ball, not the like brother. There's my
There's your
guy
boy.
Shea
There's your
Gilgis,
boy.
my guy, the MVP of the year. Oh, Jalen Suggs. Okay, I did not. Wasn't his thing was that his wingspan was too short, or am I thinking about somebody else? Or is he one of those guys, these point guards with a 6'10" wingspan? I always forget.
I think he's got a pretty big wingspan, if I'm not
Okay. Well,
mistaken.
that would explain why he's averaging 3 deflections a game. Damian Lillard, some shocking names as you hear from the inflection of my voice. So we get down to less than 3 deflections a game. Is there anybody that kind of stands out for you below 2.9 deflections per game there?
I mean, Mitchell,
Which one?
Donovan
Oh,
Mitchell's
Donovan
got.
Mitchell. Wow. At 2.7 deflections per game.
I mean,
And
look,
then,
Jalen Johnson, who just got hurt, was in there in that two range.
yeah, the Hawks have some guys that do that. I got a couple of players on my fantasy team, Bilal Coulibaly and Scoot Henderson.
Hmm.
So, yeah, when they're getting benched, at least they have active hands on defense. So that's a good thing.
You know, like I said, guys play defense in different ways sometimes. You know, you gotta make up for some of your liabilities.
Yeah. All right. And there's Jimmy Butler. Not surprised to see him there. And we can go on forever. So, yeah, interesting list. So, we have some really good players here. But as you can see, I also made sure to filter. I'm only looking at players who are averaging more than 25 points per game, 25 minutes per game, sorry, and who have played at least 25 games this season. Any other category you want to see here?
What about the loose balls recovered thing?
Just overall, or do you want to do it by
Yeah,
offense, defense?
overall.
Overall? Let's see. At 1.2 loose balls recovered per game, Josh Hart, yeah, I'm not
Just Josh
surprised.
Hart, yeah.
Not surprised. I'm
Jason
surprised by
Thomas,
Julius
Paul
Randle, though.
George.
Julius Randle in the top 5 or 6 or whatever
You
is
know,
kind of a shock.
again, Julius has a bad reputation, but you know, he when he's in the game, he hustles for the ball. He's trying to get to the ball. Sometimes he does it in a stupid way. But you know, watching him play, consistently, it's one of those guys where from outside you get narratives sometimes, and sometimes the narratives, as you know, are good, and sometimes they're bad. Uh, I liked Julius when he was here. The only thing I didn't like was sometimes the over dribbling thing
Yeah.
that you get into at times, but I could never knock the attitude as far as trying to win the game.
Let's see. Any other standouts? There's Jimmy again at the top of a leaderboard. LaMelo Ball,
Yeah.
Dyson Daniels at the top. OG
I mean, Jaden
Anunoby,
Ivey's in there.
Jaden Ivey. That's kind of a shocker. I didn't see that one coming. But the guy's a dog. He has a dog in him. Showed a lot of that at Purdue. I don't watch college basketball, but the few minutes that I did watch of
Yeah.
Jaden Ivey,
I
yeah,
mean,
he has
I
that.
liked him a lot coming out.
Yeah, me too. That's why I drafted him as a rookie. Um, and then we get to Desmond Bain. I mean, and Fred VanVleet, we just saw him in the other category. Jalen Brown, not surprised. So yeah, I mean, the guys that have that reputation are on the top of this leaderboard in terms of
Absolutely,
loose
yeah.
ball. Yeah, there's Bilal Coulibaly, which I'm beginning to sense a pattern here with him. There's Jalen Suggs again, so I'm not gonna doubt Suggs on defense ever again
Yeah, I
or
mean,
his
some guys,
hustle.
good hands, clearly, also.
Brad Beal, so I guess there is a pulse in him after all. And starting out at zero point 0.7 is Josh Giddey. There's a joke there, but I'm not gonna mention it or say anything. Charges drawn. This is not a very popular thing to do in the NBA, but uh, basically a tier of himself.
I don't know who that dude is.
Tumani Kamara. Okay.
I've never heard that name before in my
He's
life.
he's
I'm not gonna
averaging
lie.
31 points. He's averaging 31.6 minutes per game. So, okay. Okay, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
contested.
there's Hardaway, Brunson.
Oops, I already moved on
Yeah.
to contested 2 point shots. I guess what is this?
All the centers.
Yeah, because as you know, it's not just a 3 point game. It's also if you can't score from 3 point, then you got to go in the paint. So I guess this
Lopez is always like the leader in this.
really.
He could, yeah, consistently he's always been amongst the top leaders. He's very underrated guarding the paint.
Yeah, I know
Uh,
he's a terrible rebounder. That's always been his MO.
well, part of that is because he tries to contest everything that comes in the lane.
That is true. Yeah, if you contest everything, then that means you
Yeah, because if you
leave
come in
yourself
the
open.
lane, he's not letting you come in the lane without him trying to get a block shot, even when sometimes he's too far away and he should.
And,
Uh,
and that's how you stay in the league forever. Just
yeah,
doing that. Yeah.
yeah, he defends the paint well. He's got a great reputation for that.
Yeah.
Kessler, not
Yeah.
surprising.
He's your guy, right? Is he on your team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wemby, of course. I mean,
Yeah, it's a
Paolo
who's who.
Banchero.
It's a who's who. Alex Sarr. Wow, that's kind of surprising. I did not expect to see his name in here.
Yeah. Like again, he was my pick for rookie of the year. Unfortunately, he wasn't getting as much run early as he is now.
There's your guy Sabonis at 6.0.
Hartenstein, yeah.
My guy Jalen Duren at 5.9. 2 point contested 2 point shots. And yeah, it's a lot of center. My guy Draymond Green 4.7. Keegan Murray, your guy 4.2. I did not see that one
Hmm.
coming. And there's OG, who we
There's
always talk
OG.
about. All right. So it's a who's who. It's guys that we recognize. So far, no surprises. Contested 3 point shots. Again, a tier of himself. Walker Kessler. Wow.
That one's a little surprising for
Did
3-point
not.
shots.
Well, it's a sign of the times, right? It's like,
Well, yeah, I mean, so many centers are shooting, but I mean, obviously that means he's committing out there.
yeah, or he's facing a lot of guys, a lot of centers, a lot of big men that will
Yeah.
stretch the floor. But he's there contesting shots.
Yeah, but
And
well, I'd say I'd give him extra credit for that because a lot of bigs, even though a lot of bigs shoot threes now, they won't go out there and contest it.
no, they're too tired. They
Yeah,
just lumber
they
around,
just they
right?
don't even they don't bother getting out there, and that's how you get a lot. That's why a lot of them get so many open 3-point shots.
Kevin Durant at the top of his leaderboard as well, and that's kind of a scary proposition. You're out there shooting 3 pointers, and there's big ass Kevin Durant rushing
I
into
mean,
you, contesting
Durant's
shots.
always been to me an underrated defender.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100% with you there.
I mean, you see OG there, Anthony Davis, Zach LaVine is kind of surprising.
I'm surprised too, but that
Uh,
might be
uh,
more of a reputation thing than an actual
I mean, when I watch,
play
when you
style.
watch him, I don't feel like I see him do that a lot, so I'm surprised.
Yeah, yeah, I agree there. There's Dyson Daniels again, 2.8. So yeah, man, it's a lot of familiar names. What's this last one? What is that? I can't see. CO? Uh, kind of cuts off. Wait, maybe if I
Yeah,
make
it
it
kind of cuts
smaller.
off there, yeah.
Oh, just overall contested shots. So it's basically adding
Oh,
this number plus
overall.
that number. And
Okay,
Brooke Lopez
Lopez
is
plus
leading.
9.
Yeah, because
But most of these are centers. Is there any non-center on this list?
oh, good, good. That's a good observation. Let's find out. Even Alperen Sengun is up there at
Uh,
8.9 overall contested shots. I'm looking,
that's
looking.
OG. OG is the
Mm,
first non-center.
yeah, but he's still a big man, and he was listed as power forward. Jamal Murray.
Oh, for the
Jamal
guards.
Murray.
Oh, wow.
Wow. In a sea of giants, Jamal Murray. Well, I guess Dyson Daniels, if you want to consider him, but Jamal
Yeah.
Murray does, his name kind of sticks out there.
Yeah, Keyshawn George in there too.
Yeah, I did not see that one coming either. So
Miles
yeah,
Bridges.
lots of interesting names. Lots of
Yeah.
interesting names. I'm sure if I do screens, it's gonna be nothing
Mhm.
but big men. So
Sabonis, Hartenstein. Yeah, these are guys who are really good at setting screens. I mean,
lots of
Hartenstein,
centers. So don't tell
yeah.
me that the center position is dead. We've seen a lot of centers impact games defensively just based off these statistics here. Let's take a
Like I said,
look
a
at
lot of people don't, I mean, again, some things that are here don't give us fantasy points.
right,
But from
right.
a basketball perspective, some of these things that some of these guys do, they don't get credit for, especially the bigs.
Yeah, and you can only maybe speculate that maybe some things could translate into fantasy success. Like if you're contesting a lot of shots, that should increase your output in blocks per game,
Hmm.
maybe.
Yeah.
Or in terms of Dyson Daniels, if you get a lot of deflections, it might result in a lot of steals. So, but it's more of a it's not results oriented. It's an indicator, but it's not results oriented.
Right. Well, I
So
mean, sometimes, like you watch it and guys get a deflection, but they don't get credit for the steal because someone else picks up the ball.
yeah, yeah.
It's like I've always complained about to me, one of the big things that some of the bigs especially don't get credit for is what I call the basketball hockey assist.
No, the secondary assist, right?
Yeah, because you see that they throw it out to the first guy, that first guy swings it around, the other guy gets a wide open look because he made that first initial correct pass, and
Hmm.
then the other guy gets an assist, and the big man gets nothing. But the
Yeah.
big man, but the big man is the one that caused that whole open play.
Yeah, and you really think about it. I mean, they have that advantage because they're bigger, they're taller, they can see everybody moving around, and that's why it's so underrated to have a very good passing big man
And a
because they just
willing passer.
and a willing passer because it opens up the door for the
You know,
entire
because
offense.
you watch certain guys, and to me, how someone like Joel Embiid doesn't average 5 assists a game at least is baffling. He gets doubled so much and forces so many fadeaway jump shots while the double team is running at him, where he can get somebody a wide open look.
Yeah, and that's what make Hakeem Olajuwon so special because when he get double team,
Yep.
okay, just kick it out to Kenny Smith or Mario Ellie or I'm trying to think Eddie Johnson and guys like that.
Watching someone like Cat, like Jokic, who's just willing to make that pass. Hakeem back then, David Robinson was really good at it.
Shaq eventually understood the assignment.
Again, the maturity eventually, kicked in, and he's like, you know what, I can do this.
And these are teams that were well beyond their years. Remember, at that time, they weren't playing this wide open style. But you had guys, you had teams like the Magic, the Rockets.
Yeah, and to me, that's an asset for your center in more ways than just the stats. It's because if you watch teams who have someone like that at a center who can pass, the other guys will cut.
Yeah.
When you have a center who is not, who's a black hole, you stand in the corner and hope that he'll throw it to you. But when you have someone like Jokic, you watch Denver play, and Jokic has the ball and Gordon cuts. Porter runs to an open spot. They move for him because they know if they get open, they're going to get the ball.
It's a thing of beauty. It's a thing of beauty. Yeah.
Last year on the Knicks with Hartenstein, who was a tremendous passer, when that second unit came in and he would get the ball at the top of the key, guys were running into each other trying to get to the basket. Because they know if they move, if they make that move, they're going to get the ball.
On
You
top
know,
of, yeah, yeah.
you
And
know,
I have it
I,
sorted by screen assist points, which again, it's all based on screens, but it's obviously there's no passing statistic here in the hustle categories. That
mhm.
might be something else we might look in the future. But it's kind of the same concept. If you're out there moving and setting picks for others and sacrificing your body for the good of the team, it should translate into points, and that's why Domantas Sabonis he's getting credit for averaging 14.3 screen assist points per game.
And
Um,
if you look at that, there's a direct correlation. Sabonis is running pick and roll with who?
De'Aaron Fox.
There you go.
I'm sorry, DeMar DeRozan.
DeMar DeRozan. Right, pick and roll. I
So,
mean,
I deserve that. I deserve
there's
that.
definitely a pick involved. The roll
Yeah.
is, superficial.
Pick his the old pick his nose is what it most likely. Let's take a look at one more thing. It's again dealer's choice. You're my guest here. We can either look at defensive field goal percentage or we can look at the 15 and 19 footers.
Yeah, let's take a look at that mid range that we were talking about a lot earlier. See what that looks like.
All right, so field goal attempts between 15 and 19 foot. All you got to do is average one attempt per game, and you're on the leaderboard. So this is only a two-page, 54 rows, 54 players. But there was about close to 500 players initially, so I had to filter it down. And DeRozan is just on a tier of himself, just like what we saw in the hustle stats. Certain
Right.
players being on a tier at the top of the tiers by themselves. DeRozan is a tier is his own tier, averaging 4.4 field goal attempts from 15 to 19 feet and shooting at a 44.4% clip, which is pretty darn good, all things considered. When you look at the rest of the list, like Brandon Ingram,
It's so funny that 44% is considered good now to me.
no, it's well, as you know, it's. I want to choose my words carefully here because there's no way to prove it. But obviously, the the more outside you get from the basket, the further away you get from the basket, naturally the percentages will drop. Like I guess you could think of guys. Who's the guy? Kurt Thomas was it? The big man from the Knicks and
Hmm.
oh, who else did he play for? But you know who I'm talking about, Kurt
Yeah.
Thomas. Oh, he had that beautiful game where he just stood within that similar 10, 18 feet range and just get on
He,
the
he
open
was
spot, get the
he was
ball, and just
money.
shoot it. Yeah, he was money, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't shooting like 70% from 18 feet or 17 feet or 16 feet. Like he missed more than he made, but he made enough where he made a career out of just
Well,
baseline jumpers and
but that's to me you're talking about a big as opposed to a guard.
well, only because you mentioned that.
Thomas was taking those shots wide open.
Yeah, absolutely, like the Anthony Davis type of situation. But only because you mentioned that 44.4% is not impressive. It's better than what Embiid is doing at that same range at 39.5%. He's not even over 40, but he takes a lot of shots regardless because
Well,
Embiid,
again,
that's it's
and
his show.
we talked about someone like Embiid, where I say he's forcing those shots.
Yeah. And then you
You
get a
know,
the ever efficient, ever
Kevin
effective Kevin
Durant.
Durant, the ageless wonder. Now there's a field goal percentage, but again, he doesn't shoot too much from there. And let's face it, he's 7 feet tall. That's an advantage, and he has always had a really good shot. And that's
Like,
56.1%. That's not surprising that Kevin Durant
I mean,
is
look at if you're looking at
there.
DeRozan from 15 to 19 feet, where he seems to shoot the most of his shots, he's 44. And from 10 to 14 feet, he's 49.
Yeah, yeah, and then the closer he gets to the basket, the it increases. That's
Yeah,
just
I mean, obviously less
the
than
way it
5 feet,
works.
layups and dunks.
Yeah,
That should always be, pretty high for someone like him.
yeah,
But he's just like outside of where he wants to be. And as he gets older and he's able to take less physical, he's getting pushed in the wrong direction physically.
yeah.
And you
But
see the percentages as he gets further away from the basket.
but you'll see it. Everybody else is around that percentage. Brandon
Mhm.
Ingram is the second with the most field goal attempts from that range. He's at 43%. Giannis at 46.9%.
See, but the thing is to me, if you're talking about styles, how we talk about the old heads, Felipe, this 15 to 19 foot range shot that you're watching in the 40s now, to me, used to be higher. And it's not because of the range or the fact that they're not shooting it as much, but to me, it's the type of mid-range shot.
All right, let's see how far back we can go here. What year
Where
are
to
we in?
me, I think it used to be more of an open shot in that area from the ball movement, and now it's a fadeaway
Let's
from
see if
15 to
it's
19.
here we go. Okay. So yeah, we were bragging about DeRozan being at 4.4 field goal attempts from this range. Back 20 years ago, Chris
Yeah.
Webber was leading at 7.4. Yeah, he wishes he could shoot 40% from that range. He was at 38.9%. There's Kurt Thomas. Yes. Look at look at that. 45.6% from Kurt Thomas. But yeah, he made a lot of attempts from that range. 6.5. That's good enough for third place on this list from the 20 years ago. But the further you get away from the basket, your field goal percentage should be dropping. It's a tougher shot. And that's why the mid range is dying because analytics says, yeah, that's a terrible. You might as well back up a little bit and shoot from this larger distance from 3 point. At least you'll get a bonus point for your troubles. Even if you miss, it's still a better shot than taking a 19 footer. It still equals 2 points. And there's a good chance you're going to miss more than you make. It's borderline coin flip. There's Allen Iverson who is doing it must be a Philadelphia 76ers thing there where the guys who take a lot of shots from that range can't get over 40%. Joel Embiid, Allen Iverson, and then you know you get Grant Hill, Bobby Simmons, oh God, Steve Francis, 36.1%. Not good. Do we have any 50% guys here? No, we do not. Nope. Brad Miller. But he was pretty effective with that. 15. Oh, oh, I lost James. Uh-oh. Uh, I just realized I lost James. All right. Well, we were getting lengthy. Good conversation as always. Let's see here. Hey, what happened? Let me message him really quick. I am getting a thing on my computer saying that I have too many things open up at the same time. Well, that's what happens when you get a little excited talking some basketball here. Let me see if I can re-invite James. Otherwise, we could just finish right there as he's messaging me. But yeah, interesting that Brad Miller was the only guy averaging more than 50% from that range. Oh, okay. His computer died. All right. Well, time flies when you're having fun anyway. Good conversation as always with James. And we even got to see some stats from before. Yes, they used to shoot the ball more from that range, but it was a very inconsistent shot as we saw. Um, let's see. let's finish up strong here, and maybe by then James can get back up and help me wrap up this show, so to speak. Otherwise, I'd like to thank him off, even though he's offline. I'd like to thank him for being my guest this evening. But yeah, look at that. Yeah, we were marveling at DeMar DeRozan being on a tier of himself at 4.4 field goal attempts from 15 to 19 feet away from the rim, and got the big men like Chris Webber, Dirk Nowitzki, Kurt Thomas, uh, Grant Hill, although he was a point forward. Bobby Simmons was more of a perimeter player. Tracy McGrady, more of a perimeter player. Okay, so then the big men started disappearing. But yeah, even then, the big men were not trusted too much to shoot from that far away because they wanted those guys to shoot within 14 feet. Let's see what happens when you do from within 14 feet. But the problem is if I sort it by 14 feet, 10 to 14 feet, I still have my indicator here that only the ones who average one field goal attempt from 15 to 19 feet will qualify. But yeah, there's Jermaine O'Neal, Kevin Garnett, Elton Brand, Emeka Okafor, Glenn Robinson, Tim Duncan. Now we're getting those guys, those big men at the top of this leaderboard from 10 to 14 feet. So yeah, interesting stuff. Again, the focus was to stay within 15 to 19 feet because that seems to be the game that people are missing and they're longing for. But there's a reason why it disappeared. It just guys were not consistently hitting that shot, and we look at the guys who are shooting at a relatively high rate from that range in today's game, and it's about the same percentages. It's about if you could get it to 44%, that's pretty darn good. And we saw that the one guy that could shoot above 50% from this range it's just a once in a lifetime player like Kevin Durant. 20 years ago, we just saw it. The only player that could go at a 50% clip from this range was Brad Miller. And I'm not surprised that we saw Brad Miller before we saw anybody else. Let's see any other player that's worth mentioning here. Michael Redd, yeah, we know he could shoot. He could shoot from anywhere. Sam Cassell, yeah. Richard Jefferson, oh, okay, I'm a little shocked by that. Who's shooting this bad? Carmelo Anthony and Richard Hamilton, okay, below 40% from that range. Mike Bibby as well. Kenny Thomas, yeah. Mike Bibby's always had a kind of a questionable shot. Very clutch player from what that's the reputation he's gotten when he was playing with the Kings. Ricky Davis, 46.5%. That's pretty darn good. And then again, Brad Miller. There's a guy, PJ Brown, who basically lived out there as well in that range, that 15, 19 feet range. What other names stand out as we get closer to below here? I see James trying to get back in. Amari Stoudemire, wow, at 48.5%. All right, James, you're on mute. I don't know what the situation is, but I'm just wrapping up the show. Oh, you're on your phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Just telling the class how things have changed drastically over the last 20 years, but there's a reason why teams have given up on the mid-range jumper from 15 to 19 feet is because what you were saying about DeMar DeRozan, that's what NBA teams realize. Like, whoa, everybody's shooting from 44%. Why shoot from 44% from that range when you could just shoot a three-pointer and get a bonus point for your troubles? And that's why we are now seeing those numbers kind of dip, where 7.4 was it's just crazy. 7.4 field goal attempts was the benchmark. Now we're talking about DeMar DeRozan at 4.4 field goal attempts from that range, and we're talking about him. Oh, he's a tier of himself. He's Mr. Mid-range shot, and he's only attempting 4.4 field goal attempts from that range. So pretty
Mhm.
interesting stuff. I don't know if you caught me, but I also mentioned I found the one player from this range that was shooting at a 50% clip. Did you catch it? Do you want to take a guess who's the guy who's shooting 50% 20 years ago from this range?
No, I didn't catch it before.
Do you want to take a guess who it was?
From that range, I would
Yeah,
assume it would have to be a center, I would assume.
it was a center. Yeah, it was a white guy center.
A white guy center?
Yeah,
Wow. Can't- From that
shoot.
range, what, 80s or 90s?
No, no, from what year is this? 2004, 2005 season. 20 years ago.
2004, 2005.
Yeah, we went 20 years ago to the date, kind of.
Yeah, I don't
And
have a clue.
yeah, but there's a guy, Kurt Thomas. I don't know if you saw me getting excited seeing his name show up after we just talked about it, and then there he is. The eye test, what was it? The statistics confirmed my eye test. No, the guy who was shooting 50%, Brad Miller.
Brad Miller. Oh my God. Wow. There's a name.
There's another guy who was shooting above 50. Oh no, I was gonna 48.5%. Amari Stoudemire. That's
Oh my.
yeah. So the not surprised to see Brad Miller. That guy could always shoot,
Hmm.
and he was like a stretch. He was every once in a while he'll stretch it out to the 3 point line, you know, and be trusted to shoot from that far away. But I was just telling the class this is the reason why the mid range game is dying is because they're all shooting the same rate that they're shooting now, around 40, 44%, 45%. And teams are just saying, yeah, let's not do that anymore. Let's just either go to the basket or let's jack out some threes, because at least we'll get an extra point for shooting those attempts from the 3 point line. And and it just kind of slowly but surely started dying. DeMar DeRozan's trying to keep it alive, and we saw other names as well. But it's definitely not at a 7, 6.5, 5.6 clip. Thoughts on
No,
any
no,
of
no.
this? Go ahead.
Well, like I said, the mid range, like I said, if you're not good at it, there's no reason to shoot it. Just like if you're not good at 3-point shots, you shouldn't be shooting them either.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes from like the Bulls and Hornets. I mean, first and foremost, when you have the two worst teams, regardless of era, the two worst teams are going to play bad basketball, right?
Hmm.
But one of the things was like, well, why can't they shoot more mid range? It's such an ugly game when everybody's chucking up threes. And I looked at the Hornets lineup just to see what the hell. Brandon Miller, before he got hurt, was shooting the ball better from 20 feet and beyond than he was from this range. It's a difference between shooting 35% from 3 point line versus shooting 18% from 15 to 19 feet. And this is why they're not letting them shoot from the mid range anymore. 18%, James.
But again, it's just like I don't understand how you can be that bad at shooting the ball from closer.
It's
I don't get it.
it's it, it- um like I
Okay,
said,
so
it's
like 40s is one thing, but 18%?
he's that's why he's not allowed to shoot from that range anymore, or he shouldn't be. He should
But
just
people talk about like bigs before didn't shoot threes, and I'm like, well, some of them couldn't shoot threes. I mean, if you look at some of the guys, there are some guys who, because of the way they could shoot, you assume would have been good from out there. You
right.
know, guys like Ewing, Hakeem, they had nice looking shots, you know, but there are some guys who clearly, if you put them out there, it would have been ugly.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ugly from 10 or 15 feet. It wasn't going to get better for them from out there,
Yeah, there's a
you
couple
know.
in the name. Troy Murphy comes to mind. He just showed up at 37.3% 3 point range, but he was only shooting one attempt per game, if that.
Mhm.
Just looking at names on this list here. It's far and few between for big men. They just weren't allowed. Like the big
Right.
men were supposed to bang in the paint, and if you're gonna get far, 18 feet, and don't you dare go farther than that. Go ahead.
I mean, the centers back then were post up centers, and they were drawing fouls and and getting balls inside. But there was very few in front. There's Zach Randolph.
Yeah, where was he? I just
He
saw
was
him.
he was, he
Yeah,
was on the end line.
he wasn't attempting any 3 point, nothing
No,
but 3 point.
but he shot a lot of long twos that probably would have been threes now.
Yeah, he was shooting 41.9% from within 15 to 19 feet. So
Mhm.
if he would have been practicing more, maybe he could have stretched out. And by the way, I am so sorry. The column I was looking at, that's from 25 and beyond. I should be looking at this column, 20 and 24. That's more normal. Chris Webber was shooting 2.2 field goal attempts from that range at a very respectable 37.2%. Obviously, Dirk Nowitzki, who revolutionized the position, the big man position overall, was shooting three field goal attempts from that range at 45.9% 3 point range, or from that 20 to 24 feet range. Obviously, Kurt Thomas, but his job was not to shoot 3 pointers, but when he did, he could definitely make them just in small spurts. He was efficient, not effective. I'm trying to look at who else would have been a good candidate to shoot more 3 pointers in today's game, I guess. Just trying to extrapolate and envision that. It's kind of hard to do, as you know, James, but we could definitely try our hardest here. Kenny Thomas, 1.8 1.8 field goal attempts from that 20 feet range at a 51.9% clip. You think Kenny Thomas would have been the next? Oh, I don't know. I can't even think like what Nikola Jokic or whatever. Kenny Thomas. I'll take that as a no. There's LeBron James. He's a kind of a big man, right? Kinda. You forget that LeBron James was in this league during this era of basketball, which is just crazy to think. It
Yeah.
really puts things into perspective. He went from the 3 point being kind of like a taboo shot back in the day to now being the primary shot. It seems like, and he and lived
You
during
hear
that.
that argument all the time, Felipe. I mean, I had this dude the other day. He was talking about how we talk about how Larry Bird is one of the best 3-point shooters ever, and he was showing like I forgot who it was that passed Bird recently,
Yeah, I was
and
some mediocre player.
the guy posted in the group
Yeah.
about how Bird was not a good 3-point shooter, and look how he got passed by this dude, and I'm like, this just shows me that you have no knowledge of basketball whatsoever.
I think I'm the
I
one who
mean,
posted it facetiously to kind of trigger people. But it's just a bad example of how to improperly do sports statistical analysis. That's not the way to do it. And if I could find it, I will share it. Not
I
share
mean,
it, but go
if
ahead.
you watched games and you think that I would never speak to you again.
Um,
Bird was absolutely an amazing shooter from 3-point range, and it just wasn't the game.
it wasn't the
But
game.
when
No,
but when Boston would, if you ever watched, and we watched a lot of Boston Laker games back then because they were always on,
yes.
and in the playoffs. And whenever Boston fell behind, Bird would go on a 3-point barrage for that game, and he
Hmm.
would catch the team up, because they needed the extra points.
Yeah.
And the other team was going to keep shooting twos because they were ahead.
Right. And
And this
killed.
is a man who, as I told people, who won a 3-point contest in his warm-ups. Didn't even bother to get undressed and walked out there and just put on a show.
Yeah, it was definitely a different era. I remember trying to do some numerical statistical analysis of that time of his the 80s era, and
Hmm.
I was shocked to see that he was only averaging about 1.8 3 point attempts per game,
Yeah.
which was even it was Draymond Green, by the way.
Hmm.
Let me finish my thought here, which it was not surprising because that's how fundamental of a guy he was. Like he wasn't gonna be open to this novelty of shooting 3 pointers. But when he was only maybe shooting 1.8 3 points attempts per game. Not a lot, even for that era. And we saw a lot of names that would pass him by. There were guys who were shooting more 3 point attempts than Larry Bird. And Larry, that just wasn't his game at that point. He could do it, but he wasn't going to start doing it in games.
No, it just
Uh,
wasn't part of the game.
Unless it was desperate. You're right, and that's exactly what my point is. Unless it was desperation time, that just wasn't part of his game. It wasn't part of the Celtics game. Everybody, they're probably shooting from the mid range and or trying to find creative ways to get to the paint and get guys like Kevin McHale to post up and things of that nature. Okay, here's a post that I posted. Again, it was done facetiously. Technically, career 3 pointers. Draymond Green, 700 3 pointers. Larry Bird, 649. And this is we done with the 80s. We done with the 90s. Michael Dion Peak, who refers to Michael Jordan as Jordan Kruger because he can dribble with the left hand. That always gets me, bro. Like he has no left.
Um, I've heard some bad basketball takes. Um, you know, Let me tell you, Felipe, as a Knick fan,
Yeah.
the last few years, listening to people go on and on about the reason that the Knicks' offensive problems, okay, were based on this. Are you ready? I don't know
What?
if you've heard this,
Okay.
but our problem was that R.J. Barrett, Julius Randle, and Jalen Brunson were all left-handed. And I just said to them, I said, okay, so on every other team where the five dudes on the court are all right-handed, why is it not a problem?
Oh, that's
And no
funny.
one could answer that question, Felipe.
That's funny.
They're like, oh, but they're always going left. I said, and the right-handed players are not always trying to go right to their dominant hand. What are we talking about?
We've seen time and time again, like no, even in the NBA, where you're supposed to practice all this stuff, you're supposed to hone your skills, make sure you're as ambidextrous as possible. Yes, they could do it, but relatively speaking, they're always going to choose their dominant hand because it's their dominant hand.
Of course, you want to try and get to your dominant shooting hand. Do you need some variety? Absolutely. And you watch guys work on it. And I would laugh because, I would watch RJ cross over to his right hand, and he finished really well with his right hand at the rim.
Yeah. Now, if
Brunson is Brunson is a magician,
listen, man,
you know.
listen. If you want to see guys finish with their offhand, just watch me play basketball. I'm as ambidextrous as it comes. I'm not saying I'm good. I'm just saying I could do it. I can
Yeah,
finish. I can finish with my left hand. Doesn't mean that it's gonna put me in the NBA. I could
no.
take some of these other guys.
But this is the kind of stuff you hear, and it's like
Yeah, that's so dumb.
I don't know what to say to these people. I
Anyway,
just
the post was, "We done with the '90s bamboozle." They told us Larry Ronald McDonald without the red nose, slow feet, cheeseburger, chicken McNugget, eating used car salesman, no muscle mass bird was one of the greatest shooters to ever play the game. When really he ain't no better than a Draymond Green. That's garbage. Big trash.
killing me.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So, well, because Draymond Green surpassed him as a three-pointer. And my comment was, well, technically the McDonald's references are correct since Larry Bird was a spokesperson for the fast food corporation. But it's just a bad example of statistical analysis. That's not how any of this works. I still cracked up at the Larry Bird nicknames, though. As you can tell, I'm still dying. But yeah, like you mentioned, or like we've been talking about, is different game. You can't compare. Yeah, the fact that Draymond Green got to 700 points with his ugly ass shot. I'm sorry. If Larry Bird was playing today and he was given the green light, oh, he would have surpassed 700 three-pointers a long time ago. And he bet your bottom dollar that he'd be shooting close to 40%. We are talking about Steph Curry, Ray Allen ranges here. So
Absolutely.
you guys got to stop with that nonsense. It's pretty funny, though. Here's a guy, Troy Murphy. I made a correction. 2.1 field goal attempts. He was shooting 44% from field goal range, 3-point range, or at least from 20 to 24 feet range. And so there's a guy that could easily, what do you call it? Adapt to today's game. He's pretty much the prototypical player that a lot of these teams are looking for nowadays from that position. Other than that, I'm just kind of looking really quick. Kevin Garnett, you buy him as a stretch, you know,
Yeah, he could
player,
shoot. Like I said,
50%.
it wasn't a big deal when he first started though.
Yeah.
He was taking a lot of long twos.
Yes,
You
he
would see him
was.
then. Amari's up there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Not from 20, 24 feet, but definitely from 15 to 19 feet. That was his sweet spot. Who's shooting for? Oh, Joe Johnson. There's a guy who never cared. Well, there's a guy with balls though, man. That guy, ISO Joe. There's a reason why he's one of the greats. Uh, Now we see it numerically that the eye test matches the statistics. Kobe
Juwan
Bryant.
Howard.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, Jawan
Juwan
Howard.
Howard.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Like definitely he
He
lived in
had,
that
he,
range at
yeah,
15,
but
19 feet.
he had that range, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, get him outside of that and he was a disaster.
Yeah,
Even
but
even closer. Here we talked about why are big players so bad when they get closer. As you can see, he didn't even get any closer. This is the what I'm highlighting here, James, is the 10 to 14 feet.
hmm
And yeah, he knew his strengths. I'm not going to get within that 10 or 14 feet range. But how are you so bad when you're getting closer to the basket?
See,
Hey,
but
man, you
see
can't
some of these
question it.
things, like I tell people, see some of these things that range to me, that 10 to 14 foot range is a post up.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Okay, so those shots are highly contested
yes.
fadeaways in a lot of cases.
Yeah, Joan
So
Howard's not that guy. No.
that little 5 foot difference in what you're seeing in range is an open 2 point shot back then, as opposed to a fadeaway with another big in your face.
Yeah. How
You
far
know,
back can this go? Oh, okay. Really? 96, 97? Let's see. And we'll finish with that because I know we're way past our bedtimes here. Yeah, no surprise who number one is from 15 to 19 feet. He basically lived out there.
yeah.
It's one, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And look at that. Oh my God. 49.5% from that range.
That sweet J, and look, even higher, 51 and a half in that range that we were talking about. Everybody else was getting worse. Jordan
Uh,
was 51 and a half there.
yeah, from 10 to 14 feet, Jordan was
Mhm.
money. Um, but yeah, his sweet spot was that 15, 19 feet. There was that's his stretch guard right there. Because they weren't, he didn't live in it. I mean, he could if he wanted to, especially during that era. I don't know if that's the era where the 3 point line was close. No, it wasn't, right? They moved the 3 point line back to normal
Mhm.
in 96, 97.
I think so.
And now again, not surprising, Karl Malone as well is on that top three
Oh yeah.
list. So, but yeah, do we have any players who could shoot it from 50%? Glenn Big Dog Robinson.
Oh yeah. Big
Not
dog Grant Hill at 45.
Chris Mullen. Not
Wow,
surprising.
Chris Mullen. Oh yeah.
And you,
Mitch Richmond was up there somewhere too. I saw
yeah, there he is. But he
41.
was at
Mi- from 40,
41.6%.
46 from the 10 to 14.
Yeah.
He was a big guard posting always.
But as you can see, James, we're seeing more names at 50%
Mm-hmm.
compared to the other two eras, the current era, the 20 years ago era, and then the 96, 97 era. Danny Ferry, 51.8%. Vinny Del Negro, 51.7. Future Knicks head coaching great. Vinny, right? Did he coach the Knicks or no? Or I know he coached the Bulls.
No, I don't think he coached the Knicks.
Did he play for the Knicks? Is that what it was?
He did play for us towards the end, I think.
Vinny the Black. All right.
Mhm. Jeff
That's
Hornacek.
where is he? I just saw him. Oh yeah, right. I
Mhm.
highlighted him. He's so close yet so far to that 50%, but he's up there. And I'm just looking for guys who are shooting 50%. There's another one, Greg Miner. Oh my God.
Wow.
Ugh. Del Curry. Look at that.
Yeah,
And then
there's another shot.
and then look what he did from 20 to 24 feet. I wonder where his son got it from.
Yeah, imagine.
Imagine his sons, I should say plural.
His son, yeah.
Michael Jordan killer Rex Chapman at 43.6%.
Rex Chapman.
Hey man, Rex Chapman, man, he would put up some games, man.
He would.
He was
But yeah,
so
listen,
ballsy.
he was the epitome of a heat check.
Yeah.
When he was on, it was 40, and when he was off, it was 5.
Let's take a look at the 2024 feet. Who was shooting from there? Mookie Blaylock. Yeah, I could see a small guard not wanting to get too close to the action. And of course, Reggie Miller. That's where he lived.
Dale
From
Ellis,
Oh yeah, Dale Ellis for sure.
one of the most underrated shooters of all time, possible.
Mitch Richmond,
Mitch Richmond,
Tim
Hardaway.
Hardaway. Yeah, but that 35.7% field goal. Do we want him to shoot from that far all the time? We talked about the Magic. Here's Nick Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Vashawn Leonard. Oh yeah, that guy had a shot on him. You don't mess with Vashawn Leonard. And then, oh my
Glenn
God,
Rice. Oh,
there's
Glenn.
a guy that people forget about, my friend.
No, I loved Rice.
Oh, I love them too, man. Yeah, that's my dude. But everybody talks about, oh well, Steph Curry. I mean, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf would have been the modern, the '90s version of Steph Curry. But statistically speaking, Glenn Rice is the guy. High clip, high percentage. That just screams Steph Curry right there. That's the prototype,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he could shoot from anywhere in the building,
Yeah.
and it was there was never like you never felt like he was out of his range. It was a smooth little. It was no push. It was just a shot.
I mean, 53.3% from well beyond 24 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's logo. That's Damian Lillard, Steph Curry type of stuff right there. And as you can see, the other percentages 56%, 43.7, 44.4, 50% from, what is that, 5'9, 5 to 9
You know,
feet. And
when
then
you're talking
anything,
about when you're looking at distance shooters in this, look at Clyde Drexler,
wh-
46.7.
where is he?
He's highlighted. You were just on him.
Oh, what? I thought I was on Glenn Rice. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, he's below. I got you. I got you. I got you.
Look at the
Uh,
deep one.
yeah. And he's shooting about the same number of times as Glenn Rice from that deep range. So, he's nowhere near from 20 to 24 feet. He's nowhere near consistent as Glenn Rice. And
Oh
unlike
no.
Glenn Rice, he's actually
So we're
there's
talking
some.
about guys who would have thrived,
Oh,
from deep in this era.
yeah.
I mean, and to me, again, I've mentioned it countless times. Drexler to me is like the most overshadowed player ever because he played in the Jordan era. Because in any other era, Clyde Drexler would have been the best shooting guard by far.
Yeah, super freakish athletic.
His overall game, he was averaging 20 and like 6 and 6 constantly.
And I quickly want to
Like,
point out before I forget my thought here that Glenn Rice does not shoot below 40% in any of those ranges, by the way.
no,
So,
he's one of the best pure shooters of all time.
yeah, clearly. I mean, yeah, I mean, I could go on and on with Glenn Rice. I mean, the guy is just
I have vivid memories of the Final Four. You know,
Michigan.
where he couldn't miss. He just couldn't miss.
There's a name for you, Matt Maloney.
Matt Maloney. Wow.
Yeah.
The fact that I remember that name is scary.
But as you can see, no one else is even close to Glenn Rice at that 56.1% from 20 to 24 feet.
No,
Um,
not at all.
oh, what, we just saw one. Dana Barrows. Yeah, he could shoot from there.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That was another I could have been Steph Curry players.
Oh, speaking of Curry, there it is. Another guy who shoots well over 50%. We just mentioned him, Del Curry.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's not the volume shot creator that Glenn Rice was. Who the hell shooting
No.
29.9%? Oh, Dominique Wilkins?
Mm. Dominic didn't need to shoot from outside.
Yeah, just stay your ass in the paint, man. Come on. What are you doing? Was he with the
Listen,
clip? Oh,
you want to talk about dunkers? There is no better, I don't care what you say, in-game dunker than
yeah.
Dominic Wilkins.
Yeah. Vince
Dominic was a
Carter, guys like
massive.
him.
Listen, those guys are great dunkers and contests and stuff like that, but in-game, Dominic dropped more bodies than whole countries have at war. He feared no man, jumped over everyone, and that was when you could get murdered for trying to dunk in the paint.
We'll finish with this 25 to 29 feet, 25 to 29 feet range. Allen Iverson, the
Yep.
guy never met a shot that he didn't like. And as a little
Mhm.
guy, he lived out there, but yeah, maybe he shouldn't be shooting that far. 23.1%. It's not a lot of guys that shouldn't be shooting. Let's concentrate
I
on
mean,
guys who are,
if you look at his field goal percentages, they're the reverse for a little dude. It gets
yeah,
better as he gets closer,
that's interesting. Yeah,
and that's what
that's,
he was. He was always a slasher.
yeah, that's very interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think if he would have been in today's game, he would have definitely been encouraged to shoot more and maybe improve on this 23.1%. Not sure
Yeah,
what player.
to me, a lot of guys, and you talk about this in any sport, the era defined the shots that you wanted taken.
Yeah.
If you watch, like, you can give Jordan as an example. Early on, he didn't shoot threes.
Yeah, for
As he
sure.
got older and the three became more popular, he started shooting threes.
Yeah.
You
Especially
know,
when they moved the line and he was definitely shooting a lot of threes. So,
right? So players are gonna do what is best for them and for the team. And back
yeah.
then, at first, it wasn't. But you saw him. Look at LeBron's game has evolved over time to different things. The guys who are good at things will try and add whatever is best at that point.
And obviously the best in terms of field goal percentage, the best players from that range, 20, what was it, 25 to 29 feet. Reggie Miller, Rex
Right.
Walters, and not surprised to see those guys. But yeah, 1.1 field goal attempts from that range. That's actually
Right.
a lot even for back then. That's good enough for fourth place on this list. But yeah, Iverson's on his own tier, and then everybody else. Other names that showed up: Jeff McGinnis. I'm only looking at guys who are shooting well over 40%. Ray Allen, duh, of course. And we'll throw one name out there: James Robinson. James
Terry
Rob.
Mills.
Where is he? Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Terry Mills. Wow.
He used to be a stretch power forward back in the day,
Uh-huh.
stretch big man. Brent Berry, not surprised. Chris Whitney, not surprising. Who's shooting 14.7%? Lee Mayberry. That's garbage. Steve Smith, the Smitty.
Oh, Smith. Wow. I
Yeah,
like Smith.
I
I
always
always
liked this
liked
game.
Smith.
It's a
Yeah.
damn shame that the refs stole a lot of his playoff matches. Yeah, I said it. 56.3% from Del Curry. Elliot Perry. Wow. Him, I think that's the guy with the high knee socks, if I remember correctly. And Kobe Bryant.
Well,
Yeah, I can see that.
Lucius Harris.
Lucius Harris. Yeah. And then Mark
Well,
Price was the tail end of his career. But there's another guy who you could argue that he was a prototype, the precursor to Steph Curry. And of
Oh,
course, there's defensive percentages that we're just going to run out of time there. But leading the league is Amen Thompson, Jamie Jenkins Jr., Ryan Dunn, Jaren Jackson Jr., Lou Dort, Peyton Watson, Karis LeVert, Derek White, Jalen Williams, Victor Wembanyama, below 42%. And of course, they got this difference number. The lower, the better. Basically, this defensive field goal metric, it has to be less than this regular field goal percentage, and that's how you get the difference. And no surprise, Victor Wembanyama at number one, well, tie for first, along with Jaren Jackson, as the, I guess, best defensive player in the
mhm.
league in terms of field goal differential. Sound right about to you?
Yeah, I guess
Yeah, yeah, whatever.
some of these tests are kind of, hard to figure.
Yeah, I just kind of figured it out on the fly that the negative number was better than the positive number. And it just kind of matches the eye test. There's Walker Kessler, your guy, once again, who just keeps showing up on these lists, the defensive lists, hustle lists. Um, yeah, Donovan Clingan for the Blazers. One day
Hmm.
he'll usurp DeAndre Ayton from the throne. Until then, he has to wait his turn. And we just talked about it, Kevin Durant, underrated defensive player. There's a reason
Derek
why the
White.
Warriors were so dominant when he was there because he could play both sides of the ball, but nobody believes it. And
Oh
my
yeah,
guy,
absolutely.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It's a Derek White in there.
Yeah, Derek White. He showed up on a lot of these lists to my surprise.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that, he just does everything.
Yeah, the little things, the dirty things, the things, the glue guy, the things that the superstar players can't do or shouldn't be doing. That's what Derek White's for. Obviously, Draymond Green. I mean, there's a reason why the Warriors have been good for so long because he, another player who does all the dirty things that the superstar players. I'm not saying that they're not willing to do, but they shouldn't be doing. That's why you got a Draymond Green on your team, and
I
LeBron
mean,
James at the age of 50 years old,
you
still
you, you
among
need
the
a
best.
guy to me on a winning team that does that.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, LeBron James at the age of 79 years old, still among one of the better defensive players according to the statistic. Although some people would say, "Have you seen him play? He's awful. He looks slower. His teammates are carrying him." And there's a thing to be said about having teammates. I thought I saw Anthony Davis at the top of this list too. So, oh,
I
there he
mean,
is. He's right there in front of me.
yeah.
Yeah, they're right there next to
But
each other. So,
again, they're obviously he's slowed down a bit, and people are judging him based off of what he was. But
yeah.
obviously he's older, and the number he's not going to look as great as he looked, but he's still better than most.
Also helping
I
him
don't
on
know what we're talking about.
defense. Also helping him on defense is Dorian Finney-Smith. So, there's a thing. I don't want to take away too much from LeBron James, but there is such a thing as having guys who could help out. Not and clearly LeBron James has the physical attributes to be a good defensive player. There's no doubt about it, right? I mean, we've seen
Mhm.
him. I mean, we're not gonna look at LeBron James and say, yeah, that guy sucks on defense. Maybe he does
No,
because he's older now, but that's why you have teammates like Anthony Davis and Dorian Finney-Smith to kind of hide some of those deficiencies, if there are any, right? Which,
but and again, I tell people now, defense now is so much more about rotations and
mhm.
other defenders on your team because you can't guard the way that you used to because you can't touch anyone.
Yeah, you can't even sneeze at them.
You can't touch anyone. Before you could be physical. If you were someone like Brunson would have been a better defender back in the day because he could be physical at the point of
Yeah,
attack.
yeah.
You had guys built like him, like Mark Jackson, some of the bigger guards. Jason Kidd couldn't defend in this league now because he could get called for so many fouls for touching people.
Yeah, but
The
they
guys
would
who were physical
adapt.
defenders.
I
But I'm
would,
saying it's a different mindset. You need to, you know, funnel people. You rotate more because of the style. It's not the same as it was. One-on-one defense is not so much of a thing. Guys step in, they step out, they rotate around a lot more. Before it was, you guard your man. Lots of times you were put on an island constantly in the old NBA.
and we'll finish with this. The worst defender based on field goal differential,
Hmm.
Keontae George, he's on my team, and Anthony
Okay.
Simons, he's on your team.
Yeah.
And now I see why Scoot Henderson doesn't play a lot because he's on top of this list too. And
He's on top of
which,
there too.
but don't you have Shaden Sharp as well?
Yes.
Okay, well there you
But
go.
there seems to be a pattern in Portland.
Well, a pattern with both our teams. Like we're screwed if these guys get benched for defensive purposes, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's like we can't have that happen.
It's an interesting list. Isn't IU supposed to be like a really good defender?
He hustles, but he's also undersized.
Okay.
And I guess I'm just speculating here as to why, but yeah, his defensive field goal percentage is at 51.4%, and then his regular field goal percentage is 45.7%. So maybe that has a lot to do with it too. It's just the fact: are you actually good at? Is your field goal percentage actually really good, dude, or no? So
Hmm.
I'm trying to sort this by highest to lowest, and it's a mixed bag of names here. So yeah, the players that you would think are pretty good defensively have that negative differential, right? And
Hmm.
then the players with the positive, like Nick Claxton, although with him, it might just yeah, maybe he's as bad as this metric says he is. Who knows? Mason Plumlee, I mean, he's older. He's 34 years old, so he's we don't expect him to be as good as he used to be.
Right.
So that makes sense that he would be on the positive side. Remember, positive is bad with that differential. Jalen Duren, uh-oh. That's my guy. Okay. I'm getting uncomfortable, James. Now I see why he only averages like 25 minutes a game, it seems like. Oh man. Anyway, we can go on forever talking about this, but we gotta put a stop. We gotta put a stop to this eventually. Good stuff. I had a feeling we were gonna have fun looking at the sortable NBA stats. What I wasn't expecting was that these stats are still available like 20 years ago. That was awesome to look at the blast from the past, and it really we know that the game has changed a lot. But when we see it on like statistically and the numbers are in front of you and it kind of justifies some of the eye tests we've had over the years, it puts things into major perspectives. I mean, what do you think of that activity we just pulled off right now?
No, that was great. Like I said, it was interesting to look at it and you see how the game is clearly changed by the field goal attempts and the ranges, especially, how all that changed. Like I said, you can't measure things. I tell people that in all the different sports that we talk about all the time.
Like me, I don't have a problem with today's NBA. I mean, that's the way I used to. It just seemed like there was better ball movement in the playground than there was in the NBA, and that everybody was shooting for the 3-point line. Like the
Mhm.
playground folks were way ahead of their time compared to the NBA. The NBA, a lot of isolation ball 20 years ago, a lot of ISO ball. Jordan left, but people thought, oh, well, there's a trick. We got to have a primary scorer. Anton Jameson's going to be our focal point. Like, no,
Mhm.
that's how you mess up things. Jerry Stackhouse is going to be averaging 20 points a game, and he's going to
Well,
lead
to
us to
me,
wins.
again, you have to play to your team's strengths.
Well, that I'm just
You
saying
know,
that's just a bad strength right there. You don't have strengths. If Jerry Stackhouse is the guy who you're
right? No, no,
expecting
no.
to lead you to the promised land here.
Again, because people were just searching for that one ISO player, and that became a
Yeah.
philosophy for a while.
It was ugly,
And
bro. I don't like it.
but if you don't have that guy, then you've got to do it a different way.
But that
I
would
took
ex
and again, any sport, football,
yeah.
basketball, you know, if you've got a guy that is good at this, then that's what your focus should be.
And my
You
point is that there's a reason why a lot of games back in the day were 80 to 76, 75 to 72. Because that was that the offense and not to take away, I mean, the defense was obviously on point, and obviously the rules were a little bit more lax on the defensive side. Like you could still tackle people. Flagrant fouls weren't regularly as called, and you weren't being punished for hard fouls back in those days, even in the 20 years ago in the 2000s. But David Stern had enough. I mean, a lot of it was here's our primary point scorer. He's going to average 18 points a game, but we're going to run the ball with him each and every offensive possession. We're going to let him try to work from the post, from the top of the key, see if he can get to the basket by forcing the issue, and maybe he'll dribble, penetrate, and kick it out to somebody else. Well, that's not going to happen. Not in that league, not 20 years ago. But damn it, he's going to get his 18 points because that's going to give us the best chance to win. And it ended up just being ugly looking basketball, especially for a guy like me, it was ugly. Today, there's more ball movement. Even when I
Yeah,
was playing NBA, I'll finish with this. You'll appreciate this anecdote. When you remember that game NBA Street on the PlayStation 2? I don't know if you actually played any of that or not,
yeah.
but yeah, dude, yeah, the object of the game is to make all these fancy tricks and to make these spectacular dunks, and you get these little trick points, and the trick points they would eventually add to your game breaker, right? And that's how you would
Mhm.
win the game. You know how my dumbass was trying to win in that league in that NBA Street video game? I was trying to shoot 3 pointers so I can get to 21 points before anybody else. I was ahead of the curve there, James. Now
Well,
everybody's doing it.
you probably had a spreadsheet about it too.
Uh,
Um,
Not at that
you know,
time. No, not
look,
at that time. I wasn't there yet.
I don't have any issue with the 3-point shooting per se. My issue is that it should be looking for the open shot.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you watch these games and there are guys who are shooting with a guy like on top of them constantly.
Mm,
And if you're moving the ball around and you're getting open good 3-point shots, that's not an issue. But
yeah.
if you're constantly jacking and you're dribbling outside the 3-point line and then pulling up with a guy underneath you, that's not a great shot.
Yeah. The
I mean,
Lamella
if you
Ball
look at
thing.
if you look at the 3-point shooting numbers, when you got a wide open shot, the percentage is much better than when you got the guy like on within a foot of you.
Yeah.
But guys take so many of those shots, and that's what makes it look ugly. Because when they make one of those shots, it's on every highlight.
Yeah.
But they don't show the other eight that he missed. Because the guy was like, right on top of him. And it's like I'm watching, the most games I watch is like the Knick games now, obviously, because I'm a Knick fan. And you see the ball movement, somebody ends up with a wide open corner three. It looks
Yeah.
great. I don't care if you shoot eight of those wide open. Yeah, you're not going to make all eight, but your percentage is generally higher when you're wide open than if you got somebody on top of you and you're dribbling, you're pounding the ball.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about somebody like Lillard. Lillard's out there, he's pounding it 15 seconds, and then he's jacking the ball up with the guy, jumping at him with the shot clock running down.
Yeah.
That's
Eh,
that's not, that's not your that's not the point of it.
Actually, with him, it's actually considered a good shot. Interestingly enough.
I mean, the percentage has not been going in the right direction the last few years.
Well, come on, he's older now. Come on, give him a break. Anyway, James, I would consider that your last word there. Hey, once again, I appreciate you coming on board and talking some hoops with me. Always a pleasure talking. We went way over our time limit as always, but when do we get a chance to talk about basketball, man?
Absolutely.
Baseball season's right around the corner, so this is probably going to be one of the last episodes I do for basketball until I try to do once a month. So maybe that's why it's part of the reason why it goes so long. It's like, well, you're not gonna hear about me talking basketball for another month or so, and it's prime baseball season, bro. You know what's around the corner? Fantasy baseball draft season, and you're coming back to our baseball life league. So I'm looking forward to compete against you in that league. And as always, I'm everybody's gunning for me, but I always put on a good show for the folks out there. I just can't help but that Shohei Ohtani is not on my team. Like he's on my nightmares, bro. I close my eyes and there's Shohei jacking up 10 home runs in the final week of the season to help James, the other James in the league, win the championship, and that still gives me nightmares to this day. But anyway, James, the Knicks fan on that side. I am Felipe, the Bulls fan, true and true. Thank you for listening. We will talk later. Have a good one, everybody.
All right, my brother. Good night.